Part 1. The Battle of Los Angeles. The sky that filled with fire. War is often a test of nerve, strategy, and sometimes sheer luck. But it can also be a test of perception, of seeing what's real versus what might be the product of fear, paranoia, or even something far more mysterious. One of the most puzzling and least understood events in American wartime history occurred just months after the United States entered World War II. It was a night that has come to be known as the Battle of Los Angeles, but the story behind it remains shrouded in uncertainty and mystery. To understand why this event is so enigmatic, we need to step back in time to the winter of 1942. The world had just been plunged into chaos following the attack on Pearl Harbor. The United States was on high alert, preparing for the inevitable conflicts that lay ahead. The Pacific Ocean was a vast expanse that separated America from its enemies, but it also meant that cities along the West Coast, like Los Angeles, were vulnerable to attack. The airwaves were filled with rumors, and the skies above were constantly watched. It was a time when everyone feared the worst, and had to stay prepared for an enemy that could strike at any moment. The date was February 25, 1942. The war was only a few months old, but the tension felt in America was palpable. The skies above Los Angeles were already a little more hostile, a little more uncertain. News reports and military briefings had been warning the public about the possibility of Japanese bombers launching attacks on the West Coast. With the United States Pacific Fleet now mobilized, fears of an airstrike loomed large in the minds of military officers and civilians alike. It was late at night when the sirens sounded. The air raid warning echoed across the city, sending civilians into a frenzy. People rushed to their homes, hiding in basements, shelters, and waiting anxiously for news. But for those in the military, the situation was even more dire. The city's defenses were activated immediately. Searchlights began sweeping across the sky, cutting through the inky darkness. Anti-aircraft guns were stationed at key points, ready to fire at any moment. The city was on edge, with everyone anticipating an attack that seemed inevitable. Then a strange thing happened. Several unidentified objects appeared in the sky. At first they were nothing more than moving lights, flickering in the distance. But as the lights grew closer, panic set in. The military opened fire. A cacophony of anti-aircraft guns erupted, their shells lighting up the sky. Hundreds of rounds rained down into the night. The searchlights tracked the objects, trying desperately to lock onto something solid, something they could target. But despite hours of frantic firing, nothing fell from the sky. Nothing was hit. There were no enemy aircraft, no bombers to be found. What were they shooting at them? As the hours passed, the lights in the sky seemed to vanish, as mysteriously as they had appeared. But the damage was done. Buildings in Los Angeles were destroyed by friendly fire, with entire neighborhoods caught in the crossfire of the military's defense. There were reports of shrapnel hitting homes and cars, and several civilians were injured by the barrage. But strangely, there were no enemy forces to explain the attack. No bombs were dropped, no planes were spotted, no signs of an invasion. So what happened that night? Was this a case of mass hysteria? Did the military overreact to a false alarm, possibly caused by weather balloons or the distant lights of passing aircraft? The official explanation from the government was that it was simply a false alarm, a case of nerves running wild in the wake of Pearl Harbor. They claimed that the lights in the sky were likely caused by a combination of weather balloons, flares, and the fog of war. It was a theory that at the time seemed to calm the public's fears, but not everyone was convinced. The strange lights and the subsequent military response raised even more questions. Some people, including eyewitnesses and military personnel, believed that the lights were not just the result of bad weather or mistaken identity. The theory of a UFO encounter began to circulate. Was it possible that the lights were not earthly at all? Could they have been something far beyond human technology? Some even speculated that they were the result of secret military experiments, hidden from the public to avoid panic. The air was thick with uncertainty, and the mystery of that night lingered in the minds of those who witnessed. In the years that followed, the Battle of Los Angeles was discussed, analyzed, and reinterpreted by historians, military experts, and UFO enthusiasts alike. Some believed that the event was a case of wartime anxiety, where the threat of attack created a frenzy of gunfire. Others thought that the government's explanation was nothing more than an attempt to cover up a secret encounter with unknown forces, perhaps even extraterrestrial ones. There was no shortage of theories, but no definitive answer. The Battle of Los Angeles remains a powerful example of how fear, perception, and mystery can intertwine during wartime. It's a reminder of the thin line between reality and the unknown. What we see with our eyes in times of fear might not always be the truth, but sometimes that very uncertainty becomes part of the legend. The event also underscores a much larger truth. War creates situations where the line between myth and reality is often blurred. It's easy to write off these mysteries as the result of overactive imaginations or confusion, but sometimes the real mystery lies in what we don't understand. The fear of the unknown during wartime can lead to moments like the Battle of Los Angeles, where the story itself becomes as important as the facts that surround it. And as long as these questions remain unanswered, the mystery of that night will continue to haunt us. But what if that wasn't the only strange event in the skies above Los Angeles during the war? What if there were even more unexplained incidents that have slipped through the cracks of history? Stay with us as we uncover more mysteries of war that science can't explain. Strange, unsolved stories that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the past. Part 2. The disappearance of Flight 19. The Bermuda Triangle's deadliest mystery. The year was 1945 and the skies above the Atlantic were a familiar place for military pilots. But there is one event, one mystery, that continues to haunt the skies to this day. It was an event that involved the disappearance of 5 bombers during a routine training mission, an event that would become one of the most baffling and tragic mysteries in aviation history. This is the story of Flight 19, and the unanswered questions surrounding its disappearance have become part of a legend as chilling as the Bermuda Triangle itself. The story begins on the morning of December. Flight 19 was a squadron of 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, piloted by experienced airmen and tasked with a simple training exercise. They were to fly a triangle pattern, heading east out of the Naval Air Station in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and then return home after completing the mission. It was a routine drill, nothing out of the ordinary, and the pilots were confident in their skills. They had trained for this type of exercise many times before, but on this particular day, things would go horribly wrong. At approximately 10 p.m., Flight 19 took off into clear skies. The weather was calm, and the air was clear, making it perfect for a training mission. There were no signs of any problems, no reason to suspect that anything unusual would happen. However, as the planes flew farther from base, something strange started to happen. The flight commander, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, began to report some problems with his navigational instruments. His compass, he said, was malfunctioning, and he couldn't get a good reading on the direction they were flying. For a pilot, especially one with as much experience as Lieutenant Taylor, this was highly unusual, but Taylor was determined to lead his squadron through the exercise. As the minutes passed, the situation began to worsen. Taylor's reports grew more frantic. He believed that his squadron had veered off course. He radioed back to the base for help, but his distress calls only seemed to grow more confused and garbled. According to some reports, Taylor told his superiors that he was lost, and that the squadron had become disoriented, unsure of which direction to fly. Taylor and his squadron were already over the open ocean, hundreds of miles away from land, and without clear navigational information, their situation was growing more dire. What makes this situation even stranger is that as the pilots of Flight 19 continued to struggle with their instruments, other flights in the area reported strange phenomena of their own. Some pilots in nearby planes claimed to have seen flashes of light and strange cloud formations, although nothing that could be readily explained. But what was even more bizarre was the fact that despite their best efforts, Flight 19 could not make radio contact with anyone at base. This at the time was completely uncharacteristic of a well-maintained and routine military mission. The pilots' radio transmissions were fading in and out, and they could no longer make sense of their positions in relation to the base. At around 5:09 p.m., an emergency rescue mission was launched to find the missing planes. The U.S. Navy sent out a large search and rescue plane, a Martin Mariner, to search the waters for any sign of the 5 bombers. But in an even more unsettling twist, the Martin Mariner itself disappeared. The last radio transmission from the rescue plane, just before it was lost,
was a brief distress call. No wreckage was ever found. No sign of either Flight 19 or the rescue plane was ever discovered. The 5 bombers and the Mariner plane had vanished without a trace. The official explanation was that the planes had run out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. But even that answer seemed insufficient. The crew of Flight 19 had a considerable amount of training and experience, and many have questioned why they would have gotten so lost over a relatively short distance. There are theories that suggest the pilots were misled by their malfunctioning instruments, but that still doesn't explain the strange phenomena and the disappearance of the rescue plane. The lack of wreckage only deepens the mystery. If the planes had crashed, why was there no evidence left behind? Could they have gone down in waters too deep for anyone to reach, or was there something else at play here? In the years since, the mystery of Flight 19 has been linked to the Bermuda Triangle, an area in the Atlantic Ocean, notorious for strange disappearances of ships and aircraft. The Bermuda Triangle spans between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, and over the years, it has gained a reputation for being a zone of mystery, a place where things simply vanish without explanation. While the Bermuda Triangle itself is often dismissed as just a collection of coincidental disappearances, the case of Flight 19 stands out as one of the most puzzling and tragic mysteries in the region. Many believe that there is something about this area of the ocean that defies explanation. Could the Bermuda Triangle truly be the site of strange, unexplainable phenomena? Some claim that it's the result of environmental factors like magnetic anomalies, or that it's simply the site of terrible accidents and bad luck. Others, however, point to the supernatural, suggesting that perhaps the Bermuda Triangle is a place where the normal rules of reality don't apply. Some theories suggest that the disappearances could be the result of extraterrestrial activity, that the area could be a hotspot for alien interactions. It's a theory that, while far-fetched, is often considered when the evidence simply doesn't fit together. One of the most interesting aspects of the Bermuda Triangle theory is how it continues to evolve over the years. Some researchers have suggested that magnetic anomalies in the area might interfere with the navigational instruments on ships and aircraft. These anomalies could cause a pilot or captain to become disoriented, leading them to make fatal mistakes. Others point to the possibility of natural underwater vortices that might swallow up ships and planes much like a whirlpool. But for many, the disappearance of Flight 19 remains a mystery that will never be solved, with explanations ranging from mundane to the fantastical. The truth is, we may never know exactly what happened to those 5 bombers or the rescue plane. The case of Flight 19 remains one of the most enduring mysteries in military aviation history. Whether it's the result of a technical failure, navigational error, or something more unusual, it continues to fuel speculation and wonder. And perhaps that's what makes it so captivating, because in the end we're left with questions that may never be answered. Why did these planes disappear? Where did they go? And could the Bermuda Triangle truly be a place where the rules of nature, time and space somehow bend in ways we can't understand? As we close this chapter of the mystery, it's worth noting that the world is full of places like this, places where the unexplained continues to lurk just beneath the surface, where science can't fully answer the questions, and where stories are passed down through generations, fueling our fascination with the unknown. Flight 19 is just one of many tales of the unexplained, of airmen, sailors and explorers who have ventured into the unknown and never returned. But while the mystery of Flight 19 may remain unresolved, the search for answers continues. Perhaps in the future the secrets of the Bermuda Triangle will finally be revealed, or perhaps, like so many of the world's greatest mysteries, they will remain forever out of reach. Part 3. The Lost Nazi Gold Train. A treasure hunt shrouded in mystery. The end of World War II was supposed to mark the conclusion of one of the darkest chapters in history, but for many it was just the beginning of another enigma, one that would haunt treasure hunters and historians alike for decades to come. The mystery revolves around the lost Nazi gold train, a legendary train that supposedly disappeared somewhere in the mountains of Poland in the final days of the war. But this was no ordinary train. This was a train carrying untold riches, and its disappearance remains one of the most tantalizing and frustrating unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. The tale begins in the waning days of the war, as Nazi Germany was on the brink of collapse, with the Soviet forces closing in from the east, and the Allies pressing from the west. The Nazis were frantically scrambling to secure whatever wealth they could to fund their war efforts, or perhaps escape with it to create an underground empire. But by the end of the war, much of Germany's wealth had already been looted or destroyed, but not all of it. Some of it, The most valuable treasures of all were hidden away in a secret train bound for a mysterious destination. The train was reportedly loaded with gold, jewels, priceless art, and a vast array of other valuable items, enough to change the course of history, if they could ever be found. The legend of the Nazi gold train dates back to 1945, when, as the war in Europe drew to a close, German officials were scrambling to hide any remaining treasures from the advancing Soviet and Allied forces. One of the most famous reports came from local residents near the city of Wałbrzych, located in southwestern Poland, close to the German border. They claimed to have witnessed Nazi officers loading a train with barrels of gold and other precious items, before it disappeared into the tunnels of the surrounding mountains. For years the fate of this train remained a mystery. Some believed that it had been lost, buried deep within the mountains, never to be found again. Others thought it had been destroyed, its contents looted or scattered. But despite the widespread belief that the train had vanished without a trace, rumors persisted. Rumors that this treasure-laden train had simply been hidden away, locked in a secret location, waiting to be discovered. In the 1970s, after decades of silence, the legend began to resurface. A handful of explorers and treasure hunters embarked on what would become an obsession for many, searching for the lost Nazi gold train. But despite their best efforts, no solid evidence ever surfaced. The train, it seemed, had vanished without a trace. Then in 2015, the mystery took an unexpected turn. A pair of treasure hunters, one a German man and the other a Polish man, came forward with new information. They claimed to have discovered the location of the train deep in the heart of the Kęstuś Castle area in Poland, located near Wałbrzych. The men reported that they had found a set of tunnels that appeared to have been sealed off by the Nazis as they attempted to hide the train from the advancing Allied forces. These men, using modern technology like ground-penetrating radar, had discovered something astonishing: a series of anomalies beneath the surface that suggested the presence of a large object, perhaps a train. The discovery immediately captured the attention of historians, treasure hunters and the media, and soon a full-scale search was underway. But despite the excitement, no one has yet been able to verify the treasure's existence. The site was excavated, but no train was uncovered, and no gold or jewels were found. The treasure hunters who claimed to have discovered the train's location stood by their findings, but the evidence was circumstantial at best. The only thing that was discovered was some strange remnants and signs of underground construction. Some claim that these are signs of Nazi activity in the area, but no definitive proof has yet emerged. Why has the train never been found? Theories abound, of course. One suggestion is that the Nazi officers involved in the train's transport deliberately buried it to ensure that it would never be recovered. Another theory is that the train was in fact looted before it was hidden away, and the gold was redistributed or sold long ago. And some believe that the train may have never existed in the first place, just a product of wartime rumors and local myth. But what if it was real? The possibilities are tantalizing. If the treasure were to be discovered, it would be worth billions of dollars today. Gold, rare artwork, priceless artifacts. For historians, the discovery of this treasure would offer a rare glimpse into the chaos and desperation of the final days of the war. What other secrets could the train reveal about the Nazi regime's hidden wealth? What other mysteries might be uncovered along with the treasure? Despite the setbacks, the search continues. Every year treasure hunters and historians descend on the area, hoping to make a breakthrough. But so far no one has been able to prove conclusively whether the train exists, or where it is hidden. The Nazi gold train remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the war, a mystery that refuses to die. The lost train embodies the themes of the war itself: confusion, deception, and uncertainty. In the final days of the Third Reich, when all seemed lost, the Nazi officers may have hoped to escape with their wealth and treasure. But if the stories are true, the train never made it to its destination, and the mystery continues to puzzle and intrigue the world. Some believe that the train could still be buried in the mountains, waiting to be uncovered by the right person with the right. Others think it could have been relocated, hidden away somewhere else, possibly even in the vast underground bunkers that the Nazis were famous for building in their final days. The Kęstuś Castle and the surrounding areas are still being combed by treasure hunters, and with each passing year, the excitement surrounding the mystery only grows stronger. The story of the Nazi gold train is a tale of lost riches, of a treasure that may or may not exist, and of a mystery that continues to captivate the imagination. Could it be out there, buried beneath the mountains of Poland? Perhaps one day, the world will know. Or perhaps, like so many wartime mysteries, it will remain forever unsolved, a ghost story from the past that continues to haunt the present. Part 4. The Phantom Battles of the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle, 3 words that evoke a sense of mystery and intrigue. A place where the boundaries of science, myth and reality blur. Located between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, this area of the Atlantic Ocean has long been associated with strange disappearances, mysterious phenomena, and unexplained occurrences. While many dismiss it as an area where natural forces simply lead to unfortunate accidents, others believe there's something far stranger at play. The Bermuda Triangle has been the setting for a number of bizarre incidents, including the disappearance of planes and ships without a trace. But one of the most chilling stories is that of the Phantom Battles, a series of strange events during the Second World War that have left many wondering if the triangle itself is somehow a portal to another time. In the late summer of 1945, the USS Cyclops, a massive American cargo ship, vanished without a trace in the Bermuda Triangle. It was the largest non-combatant loss of life in US Navy history. What made the disappearance of the Cyclops even more perplexing was the fact that the ship was carrying a full load of manganese ore, a valuable and highly sought-after material. It was a ship that should have been easy to find, yet the USS Cyclops simply disappeared without a single distress signal or wreckage ever being found. But the story doesn't end there. Not long after the disappearance of the Cyclops, a number of other military vessels and aircraft vanished in the same general area, and these events began to be linked to a phenomenon that was quickly gaining attention from the media and the public: the Bermuda Triangle. One such incident occurred during the height of World War II, in October 1943, when several American planes flying over the Bermuda Triangle experienced a series of strange and unexplained mechanical failures. These planes, part of a routine patrol flight, suddenly began to experience erratic behavior. The pilots were confused and reported that they could not understand what was happening. Instruments were malfunctioning, and the pilots described an eerie sense of confusion, as if the laws of physics themselves were somehow being warped. The pilots soon reported that they were losing control of their aircraft, and many of them inexplicably crashed into the sea. But perhaps the most chilling tale comes from Flight 19, a group of 5 American bombers that disappeared in December 1945 while on a routine training mission in the Bermuda Triangle. The flight's leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, had become disoriented and was unable to find his way back to base. The planes eventually ran out of fuel, and in a final communication, Taylor reported, "Everything looks strange, even the ocean. We are entering white water. Nothing seems right." When the flight failed to return, a search was launched, but no wreckage was ever found. What made this particular incident so disturbing was the fact that before they vanished, the pilots of Flight 19 reported seeing a mysterious white water beneath them. This, combined with the disorienting effects they experienced, led some to believe that they had crossed into another dimension, or perhaps even another time. The idea of the Bermuda Triangle being a place of temporal anomalies where time itself bends and warps has been floated by some researchers. Could the pilots of Flight 19 have somehow slipped into the past? Could they have stumbled upon a phantom battle? A battle from the past that was somehow playing out in the present? Some believe that the Bermuda Triangle could be a time portal, a place where the fabric of time is thinner than elsewhere on Earth. There have been reports of strange weather patterns, unexplained electrical disturbances, and sightings of phantom ships and aircraft in the area. Some have even suggested that the Bermuda Triangle could be a location where lost battles from history continue to play out, like echoes from the past reverberating through time. One of the most eerie accounts comes from a survivor of a World War II bombing raid over Germany. This survivor, who was flying in a British bomber, reported seeing something strange while in the Bermuda Triangle, on a return flight. According to the pilot, as they approached the area, they saw a massive aerial battle unfolding beneath them. The air was filled with the sounds of explosions, machine gun fire, and aircraft swooping and diving. But when the pilot looked closer, the planes he was seeing didn't belong to any known squadron. Some of them appeared to be from an earlier period in history, and others looked like they were from the future. The pilot described the scene as surreal, planes from different eras, locked in combat in a way that defied all logic. And when the pilot attempted to get closer to investigate, the scene vanished, and the sky returned to normal, leaving the bomber crew shaken and confused. Was this a war that was being replayed over and over, like a time loop? Or was it a moment from the past, captured in time, like a ghostly battle, frozen in the ether? Such incidents aren't isolated. There have been numerous reports of war-related phenomena occurring in the Bermuda Triangle, including the inexplicable disappearance of military vessels, the sudden appearance of warplanes that have been missing for decades, and the eerie reappearance of long-lost ships that have been thought to have sunk during the Second World War. Many of these stories are dismissed by skeptics, who argue that the Bermuda Triangle is simply a region where weather patterns and navigation errors account for the strange occurrences. But the more you look into it, the stranger the coincidences become. Could the Bermuda Triangle be a place where time itself is distorted, where echoes of lost battles from the past continue to reverberate into the present? Some believe that the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle is tied to something much deeper and more profound than we can currently understand, a phenomenon that defies the very laws of nature. Perhaps the Bermuda Triangle is not just a place of mystery, but a gateway to another dimension, a place where the past and present collide, and where the dead continue to fight their wars long after they've been forgotten. The mystery of the Bermuda Triangle and its phantom battles remains unsolved to this day, and no one knows for certain what is really happening in this strange and eerie place. Whether it's the work of supernatural forces, the result of unexplained scientific phenomena, or simply the remnants of a forgotten war, the Bermuda Triangle continues to captivate the imagination of those who dare to explore its secrets. And while the world may never fully understand what happens within its boundaries, one thing is certain: the Bermuda Triangle is a place where the lines between history and mystery are forever blurred.
Part 5. The vanishing of the Russian ghost fleet. The world is full of ghost ships, vessels that have been found abandoned, drifting aimlessly, or vanished without a trace. But one of the most eerie and inexplicable incidents took place during the height of the Cold War, when the Soviet Union lost a fleet of military ships under circumstances so mysterious that they remain unexplained to this day. This is the tale of the Russian ghost fleet, a fleet that seemed to vanish into thin air, leaving behind only questions and theories that have persisted for decades. It all started in the winter of the Soviet Navy had been conducting a large-scale military operation in the Arctic Ocean, a region that was both strategically important and incredibly dangerous. The operation, codenamed Operation Polar Star, involved the movement of several ships from a Russian naval base in Murmansk to a top-secret location near the Arctic Circle. The mission was shrouded in mystery, with very little information available to outsiders. The fleet included a range of vessels, from submarines to aircraft carriers, all of which were heavily armed and carrying sensitive materials. For years, the details of Operation Polar Star were classified, and little was known about what the fleet was doing in the frozen waters of the Arctic. What made this operation particularly strange was the sudden disappearance of the fleet in the summer of night. After several weeks of radio silence, the Soviet government lost all contact with the fleet, and no one had any idea where they had gone. At first, it was assumed that the ships had simply gone off course, or perhaps encountered some sort of technical malfunction. But as the weeks turned into months, and no word came from the ships, suspicions began to rise. Search missions were launched, but despite their best efforts, no wreckage or debris was found, no distress signals had been sent, no bodies recovered, nothing. The entire fleet had vanished, seemingly without a trace. It was as if the fleet had been swallowed up by the ocean itself. At the time, the Cold War was at its peak, and the Soviet Union was under heavy scrutiny from both Western powers and its own citizens. The disappearance of such a large and strategically important fleet raised more than a few eyebrows, and the Soviet government was quick to dismiss any rumors or reports of the incident. But as more time passed and the mystery deepened, strange reports began to emerge from both Soviet and Western intelligence sources. Some sailors claimed to have seen strange lights in the sky in the days leading up to the fleet's disappearance. Others spoke of hearing unexplainable noises from the depths of the ocean. But perhaps the most chilling reports came from witnesses who claimed that they had seen the fleet reappear, only to vanish again just as mysterious. The most well-known account comes from a Soviet submarine captain who was part of a rescue mission sent to locate the fleet. According to his report, while his submarine was patrolling the waters near the Arctic Circle, the crew began to notice an unusual phenomenon. They were being followed by what appeared to be a ghost fleet, a line of ships that appeared on their radar but had no physical presence. The captain described the ships as shadows, like echoes of something that had once existed but was no longer tangible. They seemed to flicker in and out of existence,
just beyond the range of their sonar equipment, as though they were stuck in time, unable to move forward or backward. The captain's report was dismissed by the Soviet authorities, but the story persisted, and it only added to the growing mystery of what had happened to the original fleet. Years later, in the 1980s, a team of American researchers attempted to investigate the disappearance of the Russian ghost fleet, using newly available satellite technology. What they found was even stranger than they had imagined. The area where the fleet was last seen was not only free of debris, but it also appeared to be disturbed in a way that suggested some kind of energy field or unexplained phenomenon was at play. They found patterns in the ocean floor that could not be easily explained, with massive disruptions that seemed to form a strange geometric pattern, almost as if the fleet had been caught in some kind of electromagnetic storm or temporal rift, causing the ships to disappear or shift to another dimension. The team theorized that a powerful underwater current, combined with strange magnetic anomalies in the region, could have caused the fleet to be pulled into a time slip, a rift in time that temporarily transported the ship somewhere beyond our reality. Some believe that the fleet may have been lost due to a combination of technological failures, natural forces, and perhaps even military secrecy. However, the more the mystery is investigated, the more bizarre and unexplainable the incident seemed. Could the ships have been caught in some kind of time loop where they are fated to disappear and reappear, repeating their tragic fate over and over again? Or is there something deeper at play? Perhaps the fleet's disappearance was the result of something far more advanced, something beyond human understanding. One theory that has gained traction over the years is that the fleet was caught in a time distortion field, possibly created by an ancient alien technology hidden beneath the Arctic ice. This theory suggests that the ships were either pulled into a different timeline or perhaps trapped in a parallel dimension. The concept of parallel universes has fascinated scientists for years, and it's not entirely out of the realm of possibility that something like a dimensional rift could have been the cause of the fleet's disappearance. If this were true, it would mean that the Russian ghost fleet could be lost in another universe, forever locked in a battle with time. But what about the eerie lights and sounds that were reported before and after the disappearance? Could these have been signs of extraterrestrial involvement? Some of the reports from the witnesses mentioned seeing strange, unexplainable lights in the sky, while others described hearing unsettling noises that seemed to come from the ocean itself. Was the fleet taken by some otherworldly force? Were the lights a signal, a warning that something beyond our world was about to take place? Could this be part of a greater military experiment that went wrong? A test of advanced technology, or weaponry that triggered something far beyond the understanding of the scientists who were involved? Whatever the truth may be, the disappearance of the Russian ghost fleet remains one of the most puzzling and terrifying unsolved mysteries in naval history. As time passes, new theories continue to emerge, and the ghost fleet continues to haunt the minds of those who dare to investigate its disappearance. What happened to those ships? Were they lost in time, caught in a rift between worlds? Or was there a more human explanation, one that we have yet to fully uncover? The answers may never come, but the mystery continues to linger, as haunting and enigmatic as the icy waters of the Arctic Ocean themselves. Part 6. The Disappearance of Flight 19 and the Bermuda Triangle. Enigma. As we journey further into the unknown, we now find ourselves in the midst of one of the most baffling and well-known mysteries in aviation history. The case of Flight 19, a squadron of 5 U.S. Navy bombers that vanished without a trace in December of 1945 over the infamous Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle, an area bounded by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, has long been the subject of fascination and fear, known for a strange number of aircraft and ships disappearing under bizarre and inexplicable circumstances. But Flight 19's disappearance remains one of the most mysterious and widely discussed events, as it is linked not only to strange phenomena, but also to a series of eerie disappearances that continue to haunt the region. The story of Flight 19 begins with a routine training mission. On the afternoon of December 5, 1945, 5 U.S. Navy Avenger torpedo bombers took off from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, as part of a scheduled navigation training exercise. The pilots, led by Lieutenant Charles Taylor, were tasked with flying a triangle-shaped route, eventually returning to base. Each of the aircraft carried a crew of 3 men, and the mission was considered standard. There was nothing to suggest that anything unusual would occur that day. Nothing. That is, except the strange phenomena that have puzzled investigators ever since. The mission went smoothly for the first part of the flight. The pilots, however, began to report strange issues as they flew further out over the Atlantic. As they moved away from the coast, Lieutenant Taylor began to report disorientation. He claimed that the landmarks he expected to see on the horizon were nowhere to be found. According to some reports, Taylor radioed back to base saying, "We are not sure where we are. However, his words were increasingly muddled, and it became apparent that the squadron was flying in circles and struggling to find their bearings. The situation only grew worse as the pilots reported more odd occurrences. Taylor told the base that he believed the compass on his aircraft was malfunctioning, and the squadron continued to fly aimlessly, seemingly lost in an endless expanse of water. Some of the reports indicated that the pilots were experiencing disorientation that couldn't be explained by simple navigational errors. They weren't just lost. They seemed to be pulled off course as if something was interfering with their instruments, causing them to veer from their intended flight path. As the hours went by, the situation became dire. The last communication from Taylor and his crew came just before the squadron disappeared. Taylor radioed the base saying that they were running low on fuel and that they were going to have to ditch into the sea. Shortly after this message, the squadron's radio contact was lost entirely, and the 5 bombers vanished into thin air. Despite a large-scale search effort, which included both air and sea searches, no trace of the squadron was ever found. It was as if the 5 aircraft had simply vanished from existence. But what happened to Flight 19? Why did they disappear? Theories abound, ranging from natural explanations to more outlandish possibilities, but the answers remain elusive. One of the most widely discussed theories is that the squadron flew into a massive storm, possibly a microburst or tropical storm, that caused their instruments to fail and led them to become completely disoriented. The Bermuda Triangle is infamous for its unpredictable weather patterns, and it's not out of the question that the pilots were caught in a sudden storm that caused them to lose their way. However, this doesn't explain why they never managed to communicate their situation clearly, nor why no wreckage was found after an extensive search. It's possible that the pilots encountered freak weather conditions, but many find it hard to believe that a group of experienced military aviators would be taken by surprise by something so mundane. Another theory is that the flight crew was affected by something more sinister, perhaps a radio interference or electromagnetic anomaly that disrupted their instruments, making it impossible for them to navigate properly. The Bermuda Triangle has been associated with numerous reports of strange occurrences, from unexplained navigational malfunctions to disturbing accounts of radar distortions and odd energy patterns that seem to scramble instruments and disorient travelers. Could the squadron have flown into a pocket of magnetic disturbance, causing their compasses and other equipment to fail? And if so, why was there no evidence left behind? Some theorists argue that Flight 19 might have been caught in a rift in time, perhaps a portal or time slip that led them into an alternate dimension. In recent years, theories about the Bermuda Triangle have moved beyond conventional explanations, with some proposing that the area could be home to extra-dimensional gateways or spatial anomalies that distort time and space itself. According to this theory, the flight crew may have flown into an area where the laws of physics simply didn't apply, leading to their disappearance. Whether the squadron was trapped in an alternate reality, lost in time, or simply sucked into an unknown dimension remains one of the most chilling questions about the Bermuda Triangle. The most frightening theory of all, however, suggests that the squadron was caught in some form of alien intervention. For decades, there have been accounts of strange sightings in the skies above the Bermuda Triangle, ranging from unidentified flying objects, UFOs, to mysterious lights that appear suddenly and then vanish without a trace. Was it possible that the pilots of Flight 19 encountered something extraterrestrial beings, or phenomena that affected their equipment and caused them to lose control of their aircraft? Did they become part of an alien experiment, or were they simply abducted by forces from beyond our world? Despite the many theories and speculations, the disappearance of Flight 19 remains one of the most enduring and inexplicable mysteries in aviation history, and the Bermuda Triangle itself continues to haunt the imaginations of those who dare to explore its depth. Whether the squadron was lost due to natural causes, supernatural phenomena, or something entirely different, the fact remains that they have never been found. The story of Flight 19 raises many questions that we may never be able to answer. But one thing is certain: whatever happened to Flight 19, It has left behind a legacy of mystery that will continue to puzzle and fascinate us for generations to come. Part 7. The Ghost Ship of the Arctic. The SS Beichimo Mystery. As we continue our journey into the unexplained, we now find ourselves on the icy waters of the Arctic, where one of the most bizarre tales in maritime history has unfolded. This is the story of the SS Beichimo, a ghost ship that was abandoned over 80 years ago, only to be seen drifting aimlessly in the freezing waters of the Arctic on multiple occasions. The SS Beichimo was a cargo steamer, launched in 1914, built to carry goods through the icy waters of the Arctic Ocean. At the time, she was an impressive ship capable of breaking through thick sea ice, designed to navigate the brutal conditions of the far north. Her crew was tasked with transporting furs, oil and other valuable goods from the Canadian Arctic to markets further south. The Beichimo had seen a number of successful voyages, but her story would soon take a dark turn. In October of 1931, the Beichimo set out on a routine journey from Alaska to the trading port of Seattle, Washington, carrying a full load of valuable cargo. However, as the ship ventured further into the frigid waters of the Chukchi Sea, disaster struck. A fierce winter storm hit, and the Beichimo was trapped in thick pack ice. For days the crew battled against the ice, trying desperately to free the ship. The ice was relentless, and after a week of struggle, the captain made the decision to abandon ship. On November 24, 1931, the crew was forced to leave the Beichimo behind. They boarded smaller ships, and were rescued by nearby aircraft, and a salvage operation was mounted to try and recover the ship. The Beichimo, however, didn't disappear into the frozen depths of the sea, as one might expect. Instead, she vanished into the Arctic wilderness, appearing to be trapped forever in the ice. The crew assumed they would never see her again, but this is where the mystery begins. Despite being abandoned and left for dead, the Beichimo refused to disappear. In 1933, just 2 years after her abandonment, a group of fur traders spotted the ship drifting in the Arctic ice, completely empty and untouched. The ship was adrift, seemingly with no crew on board, and yet it was perfectly intact, still floating in the harsh frozen water. It was an eerie sight, an abandoned ship that refused to sink or decay, as if it were frozen in time. The fur traders were stunned and alerted authorities, but despite several attempts to salvage the ship, the Beichimo continued to elude capture. Over the next 3 decades, the Beichimo was spotted several times, always drifting in the same icy waters, as if it had a mind of its own. Each time it was sighted, the ship was found to be perfectly intact, with no sign of any crew or any obvious damage, even though it had been floating in the treacherous Arctic environment for years. Multiple attempts to board the vessel were made, but none were successful, and the ship continued to drift on its own. What's even more strange is that the Beichimo wasn't just spotted once or twice. It was seen over 40 times in a span of nearly 4 decades. The ship would appear, seemingly from nowhere, drifting silently on the ice, or in the open sea, only to vanish again before anyone could make contact with it. It was as if the ship had entered a mysterious state of suspended animation, floating endlessly in the icy waters, untouched by time. In 1969, after nearly 40 years of sightings, the SS Beichimo was finally lost again, this time disappearing for good. The final sighting was reported off the coast of Alaska, but after that, there were no more reports. The fate of the Beichimo remains a mystery to this day, and it is believed that it may have finally sunk beneath the waves, but no one knows for sure. So what happened to the SS Beichimo? Could this be the ghost ship of the Arctic? An eerie and inexplicable phenomenon that has puzzled sailors and explorers for decades. One theory suggests that the ship's strange behavior was due to a combination of factors, including the extreme cold and the unpredictable movement of ice. The ship, after being abandoned, may have become stuck in the ice, and was pushed along by currents and shifting ice flows, which allowed it to drift aimlessly for years. But even this doesn't explain why the ship was always found in such remarkable condition, with no apparent damage, and no sign of decay, despite drifting through one of the harshest environments on Earth. Some theorists speculate that the Beichimo was haunted or cursed, and its repeated sightings were a result of some kind of supernatural force at work. Could the ship have been under the control of some otherworldly power? After all, the idea of ghost ships drifting through the seas has long been a part of maritime lore. The Flying Dutchman, for example, is another infamous ghost ship that has haunted sailors for centuries. Could the Beichimo be another such vessel, doomed to wander the Arctic, never to find peace? Another theory suggests that the ship may have become a living object of sorts, kept afloat by some unusual and unexplained force. Perhaps it was somehow preserved by the extreme cold of the Arctic waters, allowing it to drift endlessly without decay. The Bechimo's wooden hull, for example, was built to withstand harsh conditions, and it's possible that it was preserved by the environment itself. Some even believe that the Bechimo was caught in a time loop, an anomaly that caused it to appear again and again, unable to escape its fate. Could the ship have become trapped in some kind of space-time distortion, stuck in an endless loop of appearances and disappearances? And then, there's the possibility that the Bechimo was simply abandoned in such a remote and isolated area that it was never truly found again. Over the years, the Arctic region has become more accessible, and the ice has melted in some places, opening up areas that were once impenetrable. It's possible that the Bechimo was lost in a remote section of the Arctic, and the ice simply hid it from view for decades, until it could no longer be found. Part 8. The disappearance of the ghost ship, Mary Celeste. As we continue to explore the strange and unexplainable mysteries of our world, we now turn to one of the most famous maritime disappearances in history, the story of the Mary Celeste. This is a tale that has captivated the imaginations of many for over a century, filled with unanswered questions, eerie circumstances, and no shortage of theories about what happened to this ill-fated ship. What happened to the crew? Why was the ship found abandoned, yet still intact, with no sign of a struggle? Let's dive deep into the mystery of the Mary Celeste. The year was 1872, and the Mary Celeste, a brig sail ship, built in the United States, set sail from New York headed for Genoa, Italy. Captain Benjamin Briggs, an experienced and reputable seafarer, was at the helm, commanding a crew of 7, along with his wife and young daughter. The ship was in excellent condition, and had been well prepared for its journey. At first, everything seemed normal. The ship carried a cargo of alcohol, which was often used in trade, along with a set of charts and other provisions for the voyage ahead. The Mary Celeste was a reliable vessel, and had made numerous successful journeys across the Atlantic, but this one would end in complete mystery. On December 4th, 1872, after about a month at sea, a British ship called the Dei Gratia spotted the Mary Celeste, drifting aimlessly about 400 miles east of the Azores in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The ship appeared out of control, with no visible sign of life aboard. The sails were set, but were in disarray, and the ship was moving aimlessly through the water. The Dei Gratia crew, worried about the state of the vessel, approached the Mary Celeste, and prepared to board her, fearing she might be in distress. When the Dei Gratia's crew boarded the Mary Celeste, they made a shocking discovery. The ship was completely abandoned, but strangely, it was still in good condition. The cargo was intact, the ship's provisions were mostly untouched, and the captain's personal belongings were still in place. There was no sign of a struggle or violence, no blood, no damage to the ship. The only thing that seemed out of place was the fact that the lifeboat was missing, as well as the ship's navigation equipment, which was gone, along with the crew. The captain's wife and daughter were also nowhere to be found, yet there was no indication of foul play. The ship's log, which would have explained the events leading up to the abandonment, was still intact, but it stopped abruptly after November 25th, just a few days before the ship was found. There was no note, no explanation, no clue as to why the crew had abandoned the ship in the first place. What could have caused them to leave the ship in such a hurry, and without a single trace of their whereabouts? Several theories have been proposed over the years, trying to make sense of this eerie disappearance. One theory suggests that the ship may have been caught in a violent storm, forcing the crew to abandon ship in a panic. The ship's disarray, the missing lifeboat, and the fact that no one had been found could indicate that the crew had been caught by surprise. However, no storm had been reported in the area, and it seems unlikely that such an event would have occurred without any trace of it in the ship's log. Another theory suggests that the crew might have suffered from some kind of mental breakdown or psychological distress. The Mary Celeste's crew had been sailing for some time, and the stress of being at sea for long periods, combined with the isolation and possible tensions between the crew members, could have driven them to abandon the ship. Some have speculated that the ship's captain, Benjamin Briggs, might have become paranoid or delusional, prompting him to lead the crew to abandon the ship for no apparent reason. But even if that were the case, why did the crew leave the ship in such an orderly fashion, with no signs of disorder or panic? Perhaps one of the most chilling theories involves the possibility of foul play. Could the crew have been killed or taken hostage by pirates? It's certainly possible, but there's one problem. The ship was not robbed. Nothing of value was taken, and the ship's cargo was left undisturbed. No signs of violence were found on the ship, and there were no signs of struggle, meaning it's highly unlikely that pirates had anything to do with the ship's disappearance. Some people have even suggested that the Mary Celeste might have been the victim of a supernatural event. The idea that the ship was cursed, haunted, or subject to some kind of paranormal force has been a popular theory over the years. There are those who believe that the crew encountered some kind of malevolent spirit or force at sea that caused them to panic and abandon the ship. This theory has gained traction in popular culture, and the story of the Mary Celeste has been featured in countless books, movies, and TV shows as an example of a ship lost to supernatural forces. But what about the possibility that the crew simply decided to abandon ship voluntarily? Some theories suggest that the Mary Celeste's crew may have had a reason to leave the ship, such as a desire to escape their circumstances. Perhaps they had been dealing with financial issues or disputes among the crew, leading them to abandon the ship in search of a better life elsewhere. This theory is appealing because it would explain the lack of struggle or violence. Maybe the crew simply decided to make a run for it, with no intention of returning to the ship. The most plausible theory, however, is one based on the idea of an explosion of some kind that might have caused the crew to panic. This could have been some kind of natural event, such as the creation of an explosive gas pocket in the ship's hold due to the volatile cargo being transported, or an accidental chemical reaction. These events could have caused the crew to believe that the ship was in danger of exploding or sinking, forcing them to abandon ship in haste. Yet none of these theories can fully explain why the crew disappeared and why they left the ship behind without a single sign of where they were. The truth about the Mary Celeste may never be fully understood, and it remains one of the most mysterious disappearances in the history of maritime exploration. It's a story that continues to baffle historians, scientists, and explorers, and one that raises more questions than answers.
Part 9. The Mystery of the Dyatlov Pass Incident. The year was 1959, and the rugged mountains of the Ural Mountains in Soviet Russia would become the setting for one of the most chilling and unresolved mysteries in modern history, the Dyatlov Pass Incident. What happened to a group of experienced hikers, led by a seasoned mountaineer, whose bodies were found under strange and horrifying circumstances? To this day, the exact cause of their deaths remains a mystery, and the theories about what happened have ranged from the plausible to the utterly bizarre. It was in February 1959 when Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old student at the Ural Polytechnical Institute, organized an expedition for a group of hikers, all of whom were experienced mountaineers. They were supposed to reach the summit of Otorten, a mountain in the northern Urals, but the journey would not end the way they expected. The group, consisting of 9 hikers, set out on what should have been a relatively straightforward trek. The hike was a part of a training expedition, and it was meant to prepare them for future, more challenging mountaineering expeditions. The hikers began their journey in Sverdlovsk, now Yekaterinburg, and made their way toward the mountain. Their planned route was a fairly typical one for the area, though it would take them into some of the most remote and desolate terrain in the region. As they trekked deeper into the wilderness, the weather began to take a turn for the worse, with snowstorms and harsh conditions making the climb more difficult. Despite the challenges, the group pressed on, determined to complete their expedition. On February 1st, the group set up camp on the slopes of Kholat-Syakhl, a mountain pass, about 1.5 kilometers from the summit of Otorten. They pitched their tent on the mountainside, facing the prevailing winds and snowstorms. But this would be the last night anyone would see of the group. After that night, the group never made it out. They failed to send any messages or complete the journey as planned. Days passed, and no word came from the hikers. Family members and colleagues grew concerned, and a search party was sent out to locate the missing group. After several days of searching, on February 26th, rescuers finally discovered the hikers' abandoned tent, pitched on the side of Kholat-Syakhl. However, the scene they encountered was unlike anything they had expected. The tent was cut open from the inside, with the hikers' belongings, including clothes, boots, and equipment, still left inside. It appeared that the hikers had been in such a hurry that they had slashed their way out of the tent, leaving everything behind. This was the first sign that something had gone terribly wrong. As the rescuers continued to search the area, they found the bodies of the hikers scattered across the mountainside, The initial autopsies of the hikers revealed a number of strange and disturbing details. Several of the bodies were found barefoot and dressed in only underwear or light clothing. Despite the freezing temperatures and heavy snow, some of them had severe injuries, including broken bones, but there were no external signs of a struggle. No blood was found around the bodies, and there were no signs of an avalanche or other obvious cause for the injuries. One hiker, Georgy Dubinina, had her eyes removed, and another, Alexander Zolotaryov, had his tongue cut out. These bizarre injuries only deepened the mystery, but perhaps the most disturbing part of the discovery was the radiation found on some of the hikers' clothing. One of the hikers, Lyudmila Dubinina, had been found wearing a jacket that was heavily contaminated with radiation. This unusual finding led some to believe that the group had encountered something far more mysterious and dangerous than they could have imagined. Could radiation have been a factor in the hikers' death? Was there some kind of secret military experiment taking place nearby that involved radiation exposure? Could the group have stumbled upon something they shouldn't have? The Soviet authorities initially launched an investigation into the deaths, but their findings were inconclusive. They declared that the deaths had been caused by an unknown compelling force, a term that only deepened the mystery. The authorities closed the case quickly and classified the details, making it harder for anyone to get access to the full scope of the investigation. However, despite the official reports, the case never went away, and people continued to speculate about what really happened on that fateful night in the Ural Mountains. Theories about the Dyatlov Pass incident are varied, and some are far more outlandish than others. One of the most widely accepted theories is that the group was caught in an avalanche, which caused them to flee their tent in a panic. The injuries to some of the hikers could have been caused by the force of the avalanche, and the group may have been trying to seek shelter in the dark, freezing wilderness. However, this theory does not explain the bizarre injuries or the fact that some hikers were found without clothing, nor does it account for the radiation found on the clothing. Others believe that the hikers may have been exposed to a natural phenomenon known as katabatic winds, which are strong, downward-moving winds that can cause disorientation and panic. This could have caused the hikers to panic and cut their way out of the tent in a state of confusion. Some theorists have also suggested that the group could have encountered a wild animal, or even a saber-toothed tiger, that could have driven them into a state of hysteria. A more outlandish theory, one that has gained traction in some circles, is the idea that the group was killed by UFOs or some other kind of alien entity. This theory suggests that the hikers' injuries, particularly the strange removal of organs, might be connected to extraterrestrial activity. However, there is no physical evidence to support this idea, and it remains in the realm of speculation. Some have even suggested that the Soviet government could have been involved in the incident, with some speculating that the hikers stumbled upon a military test site or secret operation, and were killed as a result. The idea that the Soviet government might have been involved in some kind of cover-up is not entirely far-fetched, given the secretive nature of the Soviet state during that time. Yet, despite all these theories, the truth remains elusive. What really happened to the group of hikers at Dyatlov Pass? Why were they found with such strange injuries? And what caused them to flee their tent in the middle of the night? The Dyatlov Pass incident continues to be one of the most enduring and eerie mysteries in the history of exploration. Part 10. The Lost Legion of Rome. In the annals of military history, few stories are as mysterious and as captivating as the fate of the 9th Roman Legion, also known as the Legion. This legion, once a proud and powerful force of the Roman Empire, vanished without a trace around 120 AD, and to this day the exact fate of its soldiers remains one of the greatest military mysteries in history. The 9th Legion was one of the oldest and most distinguished Roman legions, serving in various campaigns throughout the empire. They were stationed in Britannia, modern-day Britain, where they fought against the Picts, the Celtic tribes of the Scottish Highlands, and other forces that sought to push back the expanding power of Rome. Under the leadership of a Roman general, the 9th Legion was tasked with maintaining Roman control over the far reaches of Britain's northern frontier. It was during the reign of Emperor Hadrian, around the year 20 AD, that the 9th Legion embarked on what would become their final mission. The exact details of their journey are unclear, but according to historical records, the Legion marched deep into the hostile lands of Caledonia, northern Scotland, to suppress a rebellion led by the Picts. The area was dangerous, marked by treacherous terrain, unpredictable weather, and fierce native tribes who fought fiercely to resist Roman occupation. What is known
is that the Ninth Legion crossed into the northern Norte, into what is now Scotland, where their mission would go horribly awry. Over time, communication from the Legion to Rome ceased completely, and no word was heard from them for several months. Roman records make no mention of the outcome of the Legion's campaign, and all subsequent references to the Legion IX Hispana vanish from the historical record. The mystery surrounding their disappearance deepened when, after months of silence, the Roman government made no effort to send reinforcements or even to attempt a rescue mission. The lack of any official Roman acknowledgement of the Legion's fate was unusual, and it led to theories and speculation about what could have happened. Many historians believe that the Ninth Legion was destroyed in battle. They speculate that the Roman soldiers were ambushed and massacred by the Picts, or another tribe, their numbers overwhelmed by the relentless resistance of the local population, but the complete absence of Roman records detailing the defeat is unusual. If the Legion had been defeated in battle, it would have been customary for Roman chroniclers to at least record the event, and yet, there is no official Roman account of such a loss. Some historians propose that the Ninth Legion may have been annihilated in a single, massive ambush during an attack on a fortified Pictish settlement, while others believe the Legion could have been swallowed up by the harsh, uncharted wilderness of the northern frontier. Without reinforcements or adequate supplies, the soldiers may have been forced to retreat and slowly perish from exhaustion and starvation. Yet another theory suggests that the Legion was disbanded after being sent to fight on the northern frontier. In this theory, the disappearance of the Ninth Legion was not a result of violence or disaster, but of bureaucratic decision-making. Hadrian may have ordered the dissolution of the Legion because of its failure to keep up with the Roman Empire's grand strategic plan, or due to the high costs of maintaining the Legion in a hostile and remote territory. An even more intriguing possibility involves the idea that the Ninth Legion defected, or was absorbed by the very peoples they were sent to conquer. It is proposed that rather than being annihilated, the soldiers of the Ninth Legion deserted their posts, abandoning the Roman Empire's orders and integrating into the local population. The idea that trained Roman soldiers might abandon their loyalty and become absorbed into the indigenous Pictish tribes remains a speculative yet fascinating theory. However, one of the most persistent and popular theories is that the Ninth Legion met a violent and untimely end, with all of their soldiers being killed. Some suggest the Legion was ambushed and slaughtered in a manner so brutal and unexpected that the Roman Empire chose to erase all traces of the defeat from official records. After all, such a loss would have been a huge blow to Roman morale and could have weakened Rome's position in the region. In the absence of any definitive answer, the mystery of the Ninth Legion's disappearance has continued to captivate people's imagination. Over the centuries, various archaeologists and historians have scoured the Scottish Highlands and northern England, looking for signs of what happened to these men. Numerous expeditions and excavations have been launched in search of evident stone tablets, inscriptions or relics that might shed light on the Legion's fate, but despite all the efforts, no conclusive evidence has been found. In 1960, a remarkable discovery was made in York, where historians unearthed a Roman altar that commemorated the victories of the Ninth Legion. The altar, which was inscribed with the names of the Legion's commanders and soldiers, added an extra layer of mystery to the already unresolved story of the Legion's fate. However, the altar did not provide any clues about their final moments, only leaving more unanswered questions. The disappearance of the Ninth Roman Legion remains one of the most perplexing unsolved mysteries in military history. Some believe it was the result of a battle, others suggest it was a case of defection or even voluntary desertion. No matter the true cause, the disappearance of such a highly trained and strategically important military force has sparked theories that range from military strategy gone awry to betrayal and horror. While the story of the Ninth Legion continues to intrigue, the lack of hard evidence means that we may never fully understand what happened to them. As the years go by, the story of the Ninth Legion and their mysterious disappearance becomes more and more of a legend than a history. Yet, the search for answers continues. Whether they perished in the cold and unforgiving wilderness, were betrayed or simply vanished into history, the truth about the Ninth Roman Legion may remain forever lost to time. Part 11. The Mystery of the Ghost Army of World War II. During the intense, fast-paced years of World War II, in the midst of deception, espionage and war strategy, the Ghost Army of the United States emerged as one of the most ingenious, but little-known units in military history. Officially known as the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, this group of soldiers was tasked with one of the most extraordinary and secretive missions, to deceive the German forces using the power of illusion. As the Allies prepared for the invasion of France, the D-Day landings in 1944 were drawing near, One of the greatest challenges for the Allied forces was keeping the Nazis guessing. They needed to create a sense of confusion and misdirection around their plan. The goal was to convince the Germans that the attack on Normandy was a diversion, a feint, and that the true invasion would come somewhere else entirely. This was a time when technology was pushing forward, but still primitive in comparison to modern capabilities, meaning any advantage gained from deception could make a monumental difference in the outcome of the war. To do this, the Ghost Army became an extraordinary tool of misdirection. Comprising just 1,100 men, the Ghost Army was a unit of soldiers with unique skills, primarily in radio operators, sound engineers, and visual artists. Their objective was to create realistic fake military operations, including phony tanks, fake artilleries, and even illusionary radio communications that made the enemy believe there were large numbers of Allied forces in a given area, when in fact, the real force was positioned somewhere entirely different. The methods they used were nothing short of brilliant. For example, one of their most well-known tactics was the use of giant inflatable tanks, trucks, and even airplanes. These inflatable decoys were placed in areas far behind the actual front lines, in an effort to convince the Germans that a major assault was imminent. At a distance, these blow-up vehicles looked surprisingly convincing. The soldiers would also use sound trucks designed to broadcast the sounds of tanks, trucks, and artillery fire over large distances. To the enemy, it seemed like an entire division was on the move. But perhaps the most fascinating part of the Ghost Army's tactics was their ability to create fake radio transmission. Using specialized equipment, the unit would broadcast convincing radio messages that made it sound like Allied forces were preparing to attack in one area, while the real assault was happening elsewhere. This created a false picture in the minds of the enemy, who would then be forced to deploy their forces to areas where there were no actual threats. This deception proved crucial during the Normandy invasion, where the Germans were bluffed into concentrating their forces in the wrong locations, which helped ensure the success of the D-Day landing. To add to the complexity of their operations, the Ghost Army was often operating under near-constant danger. Despite their best efforts to remain hidden, the risk of discovery was ever present. The inflatable tanks and trucks had to be set up quickly and quietly, sometimes under fire, and often with little to no cover. The soldiers who made up the Ghost Army were highly trained in the art of camouflage and deception, but even they knew that their operation was a tightrope walk, and if they were discovered, it could result in the loss of thousands of lives. However, the value of their efforts cannot be overstated. The success of their operations helped to mislead the Germans, and in some cases these decoys were so convincing that German forces even reported their movements back to Berlin, unwittingly assisting the Allies in the process. One of the most notable achievements of the Ghost Army was their role in the Battle of the Bulge, one of the last major Nazi offensives in Europe. The Ghost Army used their deception tactics to create the illusion of a massive Allied counterattack in a key area, forcing the Germans to pull resources away from the actual fighting front. This in turn played a major role in slowing down the Nazi offensive and buying the Allies time to regroup and fortify their positions. But despite their incredible success, the Ghost Army's existence remained a secret for decades after the war. Because their mission was so classified, the soldiers who served in the unit were bound by secrecy, and they were not allowed to speak about their work for many years. It was only in the 1990s, when declassified documents began to surface, that the true scale of the Ghost Army's operations began to be understood. By then, most of the soldiers who had served in the unit were elderly, and some had already passed away without ever sharing their story. The mystery of the Ghost Army's deception tactics raises intriguing questions about the role of illusion and psychological warfare in warfare. In a conflict as massive and chaotic as World War II, the ability to manipulate the perception of the enemy was a powerful tool, one that, when used effectively, could change the course of battles and entire campaigns. The Ghost Army's success demonstrated how the mind, not just brute force, could be used as a weapon in the theater of war. While the full details of their operations remain shrouded in mystery, the Ghost Army's legacy is undeniable. Their efforts to deceive and confuse the German forces played a critical role in the success of the Allied campaign in Europe, and their story is a testament to the power of creativity, ingenuity, and psychological tactics in warfare. Today, the Ghost Army remains one of the most fascinating and enigmatic aspects of World War II history. Their story is a reminder that war is not just fought on the battlefield, but also in the minds of those involved. In the case of the Ghost Army, their tactics prove that sometimes, the greatest weapon in war is not the one you wield, but the one your enemy believes you wield. In the years since the Ghost Army's operations, much of their work has been chronicled in books, documentaries, and even museum exhibits, but the mystery remains. What other military deceptions have been carried out over the centuries, hidden from the public eye, their secrets locked away forever? The story of the Ghost Army may have been revealed, but there are undoubtedly many more tales of wartime deception yet to be uncovered. Part 12. The Bermuda Triangle of War. The disappearance of Flight 19. In the annals of aviation history, there are few mysteries as perplexing as the disappearance of Flight 19, a routine military training mission that vanished without a trace over the Bermuda Triangle. This chilling event, which took place on December 5, 1945, continues to haunt the minds of military personnel, aviation enthusiasts, and even conspiracy theorists to this day. What happened to these 5 planes, and why did they disappear without any evidence left behind? Could there be a supernatural or scientific explanation for their strange disappearance, or was it simply an extraordinary series of misfortune? To understand the mystery of Flight 19, we must first take a look at the history of the Bermuda Triangle, a stretch of the Atlantic Ocean notorious for its unexplained disappearances. The area, roughly bounded by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, has long been the subject of intrigue and speculation. Over the years, numerous ships and aircraft have gone missing in this region, often under circumstances that defy conventional explanation. Flight 19 is perhaps the most famous of these disappearances, and its eerie circumstances have led to countless theories, ranging from weather anomalies to alien abductions, and even the possibility of a time warp. Flight 19 was a squadron of 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers that took off from the Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale in Florida for a routine training mission. The plan was simple. The planes would fly eastward for about 90 minutes, conduct a bombing run practice, and then return to base. But what should have been a straightforward exercise turned into one of the most baffling disappearances in the history of aviation. The pilots of Flight 19, led by Lieutenant Charles Taylor, began their flight around. Initially, the training mission seemed to be going according to plan. However, things took a strange turn when, after completing their bombing practice, the pilots lost their bearings. Lieutenant Taylor, an experienced pilot, suddenly became disoriented and began to think that he was over the Florida Keys, when in reality, the squadron had drifted far off course and was now flying over the open ocean, hundreds of miles away from their intended location. The radio communication from the pilots, at first routine, began to reflect increasing confusion. Taylor's voice crackled through the radio, growing more frantic with each passing minute. He reported that his compasses were malfunctioning, and that he couldn't figure out where he was. As he became more disoriented, his communications with the base grew more desperate. At one point, he claimed that he was over a vast, unfamiliar ocean, and that the islands he was seeing through the clouds were not those of Florida or the Bahamas. Despite attempts to redirect him and provide assistance, Taylor's sense of direction continued to spiral. His flight crew too began to lose their bearings, and the situation became increasingly dire. Radio transmission from Flight 19 grew sporadic as the pilots continued to search for landmarks in the sky, but none appeared. The final transmission from Lieutenant Taylor, which came at around 6:20 p.m., was the last heard from the flight. "We are entering Whitewater. Nothing seems. We don't know where we are. Everything is wrong. The sea and the sky look the same." The mystery only deepened when, despite an extensive search, no wreckage was found. The official investigation suggested that the planes had run out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. However, that theory did little to explain why all 5 planes vanished without a trace. There were no debris, no oil slicks, no bodies, nothing to indicate what had happened to them. It was as though the planes had simply disappeared into thin air. But this wasn't the end of the story. Just hours after the disappearance of Flight 19, a PBM Mariner, flying out of Miami, was sent on a rescue mission to locate the missing aircraft. This plane too vanished without a trace, never to be seen again. It is believed that the Mariner crashed into the sea during the search operation, possibly because of a fuel explosion or an onboard malfunction. This double tragedy, involving the loss of 16 men in total, only added to the eerie mystery surrounding the Bermuda Triangle. The strange circumstances of the disappearance have sparked numerous theories over the years, some grounded in scientific possibility and others in the realm of the fantastical. Here are just a few of the theories that have been proposed to explain the vanishing of flight: magnetic anomalies and instrument failures. One of the more plausible theories revolves around magnetic anomalies in the Bermuda Triangle. The region is known for having unusual magnetic fields that could cause compasses to malfunction, disorienting pilots and navigators. It is suggested that the misleading magnetic readings led the pilots of Flight 19 to become lost, causing them to fly in the wrong direction. This could explain why Lieutenant Taylor was so confused and believed that he was flying over the Florida Keys, when he was actually hundreds of miles away. 2. Human error. Another theory is simply that of human error. Despite Lieutenant Taylor's experience, the possibility of a simple navigational mistake is something that cannot be discounted. It is possible that in a moment of confusion, Taylor miscalculated his position and led the squadron astray. The high-stress situation, combined with malfunctioning instruments, may have caused a chain of errors that ultimately led to the pilots becoming lost and running out of fuel. Weather phenomena. The Bermuda Triangle is also known for its unpredictable and extreme weather conditions, including sudden storms and turbulent winds that can throw aircraft off course. Some experts believe that the planes of Flight 19 may have encountered one of these violent storms during their flight, making it difficult to see landmarks and causing the pilots to become disoriented. In such conditions, navigational instruments might become unreliable, and visibility could drop to near zero. 4. Alien abductions or supernatural forces. Of course, there are those who believe that the disappearance of Flight 19 is not explainable by science or human error alone. The Bermuda Triangle has long been associated with supernatural forces, with some claiming that the area is a portal to another dimension or that it is the site of alien activity. The inexplicable disappearances in the region, particularly the vanishing of Flight 19, have led some to believe that the planes were abducted by extraterrestrials, or that the pilots encountered a mysterious phenomenon that defies logic and human understanding. A time warp. Perhaps the most intriguing, yet highly speculative theory is that of a time warp. Some believe that the Bermuda Triangle is a space-time anomaly that creates rifts in the fabric of time and space. According to this theory, Flight 19 may have accidentally flown into such a rift, becoming lost in a different time period or dimension. This would explain why no wreckage was ever found. The planes may have simply ceased to exist in our reality, trapped in an alternate space-time continuum. Despite the many theories, the truth behind the disappearance of Flight 19 remains a mystery to this day. What happened to the 5 planes, and what caused their sudden vanishing? Was it a navigational error, a weather phenomenon, or something far more sinister? The disappearance of Flight 19 is just one of the many unsolved mysteries that continues to haunt the Bermuda Triangle, leaving us to wonder if we will ever truly understand what happened to the lost planes of
Part 13. The Lost Battle of the Somme. Uncovering the secrets of the battlefield. The Battle of the Somme is one of the most infamous and tragic conflicts of World War I, fought between July 1 and November 18, 1916. It remains one of the bloodiest military engagements in history, with an estimated 1 million casualties. The battle was intended to relieve pressure on French forces fighting the Germans at Verdun, and to break the stalemate of trench warfare on the Western Front. But it became a symbol of the devastating costs of industrialized warfare, and its sheer scale and the horror it unleashed have left us questioning not only the military strategies involved, but the mysteries that still surround this battle. The battle itself was a strategic disaster for the British and French forces, yet there are still many unanswered questions and mysteries surrounding the events of the Somme. Why did High Command continue with the offensive despite the staggering number of casualties? What secret tactics and technologies were used during the battle that are still shrouded in mystery? And perhaps most hauntingly, are there still secrets buried in the soil of the battlefield itself? Secrets that the passing years have failed to uncover. The hidden mass graves. One of the most chilling aspects of the Battle of the Somme is the fact that so many soldiers lost their lives in a single day, and that many of them were never properly buried. On July 1, 1916, the first day of the battle, the British Army suffered an astonishing 57,000 casualties, of which nearly 20,000 were killed. For many soldiers, their bodies were never recovered, and some were lost to the unforgiving landscape of the battlefield. It's believed that there are countless unmarked graves scattered across the Somme region, some of which may never be found. The sheer scale of the carnage, and the difficulty of recovering and identifying bodies in the trenches, has led to a mystery that continues to haunt the area. In fact, in the years following the battle, hundreds of bodies were found buried beneath the surface of the battlefield, often by farmers, construction workers, and even by soldiers themselves as they dug new trenches or worked to rebuild the land. Some of these bodies were discovered years after the war, leading to speculation that there are still hundreds if not thousands of soldiers whose final resting place remains unknown. These mass graves, often discovered by sheer accident, have been a source of deep sadness for the families of the lost men who never had a proper burial. But the mystery does not end there. In 2004, a team of archaeologists working in the Somme region uncovered a bizarre find:
a set of human bones believed to have belonged to a soldier from the Great War. What was truly mysterious about this discovery was the fact that the bones were buried under layers of soil and had remained untouched for almost a century. The bones were found to be in pristine condition, suggesting that they had been sealed in the soil by some unknown natural process. It is still unclear how they were preserved, and many theories abound about the forces of nature, or even unidentified technological advancements that may have played a role in the soldiers' final resting place. The mystery of the missing regiments. While many soldiers at the Battle of the Somme were identified and accounted for, there are still regiments that went missing and whose fates remain a mystery. Entire battalions were wiped out in brutal assaults, and after some battles, entire sections of the front line would be unaccounted for. The lost battalion phenomenon became an enduring mystery. In some instances, units were ordered to charge across no man's land, where they were decimated by artillery fire, only for the survivors to be scattered and left in the chaos of war. Some regiments vanished without a trace, their names lost to history. One such regiment was the 49th West Riding Division, a group of soldiers who went into battle on the first day of the Somme, and were never seen again. Despite their obvious casualties and the fact that many had been injured, the bodies of these men never surfaced. Some speculate that the soldiers may have been captured by German forces, but given the conditions on the battlefield, it's more likely that they were lost in a flood of advancing infantry, their bodies left in the muddy, waterlogged trenches, unreachable by recovery team. The exact fate of these regiments remains one of the most poignant mysteries of the battle, and as more and more bodies are recovered over the years, the story of these lost men only deepens the sense of confusion and sorrow that surrounds the Somme. The secret weapon, the British tunneling strategy. Beyond the bloodshed and the horror of open warfare, there are some surprising mysteries surrounding the strategic tactics employed during the Battle of the Somme. Among the many strategies, one of the most peculiar was the use of underground tunneling to advance on the enemy. The British employed specialized tunneling units, known as the Royal Engineers, who were tasked with digging tunnels beneath German lines and planting explosives that could be detonated to destroy enemy positions. The work of these units was often done in complete secrecy, with teams working for weeks or even months underground to plant the explosive charges. But the full extent of the success and failure of these tunnels has remained a mystery for many years. Some tunnels were successfully detonated and caused immense damage to the German defenses, but many were poorly constructed or compromised by the enemy before they could be activated. Perhaps the most interesting aspect of this tactic is the mystery surrounding the underground war that took place beneath the Somme battlefield. There are reports of tunneling teams facing not only the dangers of enemy forces detecting their efforts, but also the constant threat of gas attacks, collapsing tunnels and underground flooding. Some soldiers reported hearing mysterious sounds while working deep beneath the earth, strange echoes, unfamiliar voices, and even whispers that some believed to be ghostly remnants of the soldiers who perished in the tunnels. Despite the challenges, many of the tunnels that were excavated during the war remain hidden beneath the surface of the Somme, to this day, waiting to be rediscovered. The full extent of the underground warfare that took place is still unclear, and it's likely that as modern technology advances, new discoveries will shed light on this secret aspect of the conflict. The battle's lasting legacy. Unexplained ghosts of the Somme. The Battle of the Somme remains a powerful reminder of the devastating costs of war, and its mysteries continue to be explored by historians, archaeologists, and researchers. But beyond the physical remnants of the battlefield, there are also stories of ghosts and apparitions that have been reported by visitors and soldiers alike. Over the years, there have been numerous accounts of ghostly figures appearing on the battlefield late at night. Some have described soldiers in uniform wandering the fields, while others report hearing the sounds of gunfire, artillery explosions, and the cries of soldiers long dead. Whether these sightings are the product of collective trauma or something more supernatural, they add another layer of mystery to the already tragic legacy of the Somme. What we do know is that the Battle of the Somme was not just a war. It was an event that left an indelible mark on the land, the soldiers, and the future of warfare itself. The ghosts of those who perished there may haunt the fields for years to come, but the unanswered questions and the unsolved mysteries of the battle will continue to stir the imaginations of those who seek to understand the true cost of war. Part 14. The Lost City of Atlantis. A forgotten civilization and its mysterious destruction. The legend of the lost city of Atlantis, has captivated the minds of historians, archaeologists, and explorers for centuries. Described by the ancient philosopher Plato in his dialogues, Atlantis was said to be a powerful and advanced civilization that existed around 9,000 years before Plato's time, a civilization that eventually vanished in a catastrophic disaster. The mystery of Atlantis, its grandeur, and its sudden disappearance remain unsolved, leaving a trail of questions that science and history have yet to answer. Some believe that the story of Atlantis is nothing more than a myth, a cautionary tale created by Plato to illustrate the dangers of hubris and the corrupting power of wealth and power. But others argue that the Atlantis story is rooted in historical fact, and that its sudden destruction was based on a real event, an event that has been lost to the sands of time. So what if Atlantis wasn't just a legend? What if it was a real place, one that has yet to be discovered? And if so, where exactly was it and what happened to it? The ancient descriptions of Atlantis. Plato first described Atlantis in his dialogues, Timaeus and Crite. According to Plato, Atlantis was a vast island located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. It was a powerful and prosperous kingdom, boasting advanced technologies and vast wealth. The inhabitants of Atlantis were said to be descended from the gods themselves, and lived in a utopia of peace and harmony. The city was home to magnificent palaces, temples, and complex irrigation systems. At its height, Atlantis was said to be a dominant force in the world, with a powerful navy that controlled vast territories. However, Plato's description of Atlantis doesn't end with its rise. He also recounts the tragic fall of the city, which he attributed to the greed and decadence of its people. Over time, the Atlanteans became corrupt, and their once noble civilization began to decline. Eventually, according to Plato, the gods became angry with the Atlanteans and decided to punish them for their sins. In a single day and night of unimaginable earthquakes and floods, the entire island of Atlantis was swallowed by the ocean, disappearing without a trace. This dramatic account, though vivid, has been interpreted in many different ways. Some view it as an allegory, a philosophical lesson on the dangers of greed and overreach. Others believe that Plato's story is based on real events, and that Atlantis was a real city that was destroyed in a natural disaster. But is there any truth to these claims? Or is Atlantis simply a figment of Plato's imagination? Theories and speculations. Where was Atlantis? One of the central mysteries surrounding Atlantis is its location. For centuries, scholars and adventurers have speculated about where the city of Atlantis might have been. Plato's descriptions of Atlantis were vague, and no clear evidence has ever been found to support his claim. Yet, the legend of Atlantis has inspired numerous theories and searches for its lost ruins, ranging from the plausible to the downright bizarre. One of the most popular theories is that Atlantis was located in the Mediterranean Sea, somewhere near the Greek islands or northern Africa. Some suggest that Atlantis was located on the island of Santorini, formerly Thera, a volcanic island in the Aegean Sea. Santorini was the site of one of the largest volcanic eruptions in recorded history, which occurred around 60. This eruption caused massive destruction and resulted in the collapse of the Minoan civilization on the island. The eruption could have caused widespread tsunamis and earthquakes, which might explain Plato's description of the sudden destruction of Atlantis. Others have proposed that Atlantis could be located in the Caribbean Sea, specifically near the Bahamas or Cuba. According to this theory, Atlantis was a large landmass that sank into the ocean thousands of years ago. Some even claim that they've discovered remnants of the lost city in the waters off the coast of the Bahamas, ruins that appear to be man-made, but which cannot be definitively identified. Another intriguing theory suggests that Atlantis may have been located in the Antarctic. The theory posits that ancient civilizations once flourished in Antarctica, before a cataclysmic event caused the continent to shift and become buried beneath ice. Supporters of this theory point to the mysterious Piri Reis map, an ancient map that depicts parts of Antarctica without its ice sheet. Could the Antarctic continent have once been home to an advanced civilization, only to be lost when the Earth's climate changed dramatically? Then there's the theory that Atlantis was a metaphor for the lost civilizations of ancient humanity. Some believe that Plato's account was not a literal description of a single city, but rather a metaphor for the cyclical rise and fall of human civilization. According to this view, Atlantis represents the ultimate warning against the corruption of power and wealth, a warning that has resonated throughout history, as civilizations rise and fall time and again. The evidence. Is there anything left to find? Despite centuries of speculation, there is no definitive evidence to confirm the existence of Atlantis. Archaeologists have scoured the Mediterranean and beyond, searching for clues that might lead to the discovery of the lost city. But so far, no one has been able to definitively identify the ruins of Atlantis. However, there are several intriguing pieces of evidence that continue to fuel the search for Atlantis. In 2004, a team of researchers led by Dr. David Sweetman discovered what appeared to be man-made structures deep beneath the waters of the Bahamas. The structures, which resembled the foundations of a city, included geometric shapes and stone blocks arranged in patterns that seemed too precise to be natural formation. Some theorists immediately jumped to the conclusion that these structures were remnants of Atlantis, but other experts have dismissed the claims, suggesting that the formations were simply natural underwater rock formation. In 2005, researchers in the Mediterranean uncovered an ancient city that appeared to be millennia old, much older than previously thought. The city, located off the coast of Cyprus, was believed to have been destroyed by a massive earthquake, and the remains seemed to resemble the type of destruction that Plato described in his account of Atlantis. Could this be a clue to the fate of Atlantis? Another mystery that has led to speculation about Atlantis is the ancient texts of the Sumerians, Babylonians, and other early civilizations. Some scholars believe that these texts may contain references to a great flood that destroyed an ancient civilization. The flood stories in many of these texts share striking similarities to Plato's description of the fall of Atlantis. Could these ancient texts be evidence that a great civilization did in fact exist before recorded history, only to be destroyed in a cataclysmic event? The final mystery. The legacy of Atlantis. The story of Atlantis has become more than just a historical enigma. It has become a symbol of humanity's fascination with lost civilizations and the mysteries of the ancient world. Whether Atlantis was a real place or a fictional tale, it speaks to our deepest curiosity about the past and our desire to uncover the secrets of forgotten civilizations. Some believe that one day we may uncover the truth about Atlantis, whether through archaeological discoveries, advances in underwater exploration, or the unraveling of ancient texts. Others believe that the mystery of Atlantis will remain unsolved, a haunting reminder of the fragility of human history. As the search for Atlantis continues, we are reminded that even the most powerful civilizations can vanish into the abyss, leaving only whispers and fragments behind. The mystery of Atlantis is not just about finding a lost city, it is about discovering the forgotten truths of our own human past. And perhaps, in the end, that is the greatest mystery of all. Part 15. The Dyatlov Pass Incident. A mysterious deaths in the Ural Mountains. In the harsh, frozen wilderness of the Ural Mountains in Russia, a terrifying and unsolved mystery has intrigued both experts and armchair detectives for decades. The Dyatlov Pass Incident is one of the most chilling events in the history of outdoor exploration, involving the mysterious deaths of 9 experienced hikers in 19. Despite numerous investigations and theories, the exact cause of their deaths remains unknown, leaving a trail of eerie questions that have yet to be answered. On the night of February 1, a group of 9 seasoned hikers, led by Igor Dyatlov, set out on an expedition in the northern Ural Mountains. The group consisted of university students and experienced mountaineers who were well equipped for their journey. They had planned to reach the peak of Ototen, a mountain in the region, and then return to their base camp. However, something went terribly wrong, and by the end of their journey, all 9 hikers were dead. What happened in those frigid mountains remains one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries of the disappearance and discovery of the bodies. The group set out from Sverdlovsk, now Yekaterinburg, in late January, and everything appeared to be normal in the days leading up to their expedition. But when the hikers failed to return by the agreed-upon date, a search party was dispatched to locate them. After several days of searching, the hikers' abandoned tent was discovered on the slopes of Dyatlov Pass, located on the eastern side of the Ural Mountain. What the search party found next was nothing short of shocking. The hikers' tent had been slashed open from the inside, suggesting that the group had fled in a panic. Their belongings, including their shoes, were left behind, and some of the hikers had been found in only their underwear, despite the freezing temperatures of the Russian winter. In addition, the footprints of the hikers led off into the snow, but they seemed to have no clear destination. There were signs of disorientation, and it appeared as if the hikers had been running for their lives. The The bodies of the hikers were scattered across a wide area, with some found as much as a mile from the tent. Several of the bodies showed signs of severe injury, and some were found without eyes, tongues, or other body parts. Strangely, the bodies had no visible external wounds, but the autopsies revealed internal injuries similar to those caused by a violent car crash. Some of the hikers' clothes contained high levels of radiation, and others had inexplicable facial injuries, leading some to suggest that the group had been subjected to some kind of unknown external force. In the end, 4 of the hikers had been found with severe head injuries, while others had suffered broken ribs, and one had even been found with a missing tongue and eye. The most perplexing part of the incident was the lack of external trauma, which led many to wonder if the hikers had been attacked by something far beyond human comprehension. What caused these unusual injuries? How did they meet such a gruesome? The official investigation was unable to offer clear answers, and the cause of death remained shrouded in mystery. The theories. What really happened on Dyatlov Pass? Over the years, countless theories have been put forward to explain what happened at Dyatlov, from natural explanations to more bizarre and speculative ideas. The mystery continues to puzzle researchers. Let's examine some of the most popular theories, each of which offers a different perspective on the events that led to the hikers' death. Avalanche theory. The most widely accepted theory is that the hikers were caught in an avalanche. Some experts believe that an avalanche occurred during the night, forcing the hikers to cut open their tent in a desperate attempt to escape. In the chaos, they ran without shoes or proper clothing, and some may have fallen or been injured in the process. The internal injuries found on some of the hikers' bodies could have been caused by the force of the avalanche, or by being struck by heavy snow and debris. However, this theory is not without its problems. There was no evidence of an avalanche at the site of the incident, and the terrain was not particularly conducive to such an event. Some argue that if an avalanche had occurred, it would have been easier to spot signs of it in the snow. Military involvement. Another popular theory suggests that the hikers were somehow involved in a military experiment gone wrong. This theory stems from the fact that several of the hikers' bodies showed signs of radiation and unusual injury. Some believe that the hikers stumbled upon a secret military testing site in the area and were subjected to some kind of chemical or biological experiment. Others speculate that the hikers were accidentally exposed to radiation from military equipment, leading to the strange injury. While this theory remains popular among conspiracy theorists, no concrete evidence has been found to support it. Yeti or animal attack. The idea that the hikers were attacked by a yeti or other large, unknown creatures has also been proposed. Some believe that the bizarre injuries found on the hikers' bodies, such as the missing eyes and tongue, were the result of an animal attack. The fact that the hikers seemed to be in a state of panic and disarray may suggest that they were trying to escape from a terrifying creature. However, no evidence of large predators or unknown creatures in the area has ever been found, making this theory seem unlikely to most experts. Infrasound theory. One of the more unusual theories put forward in recent years is the idea that the hikers experienced a phenomenon known as infrasound, which occurs when sound waves at frequencies below the range of human hearing cause intense feelings of fear and disorientation. Some researchers believe that the specific weather conditions at the time of the incident created a vortex of infrasound, which may have caused the hikers to panic and flee the tent in a state of confusion. Infrasound has been linked to feelings of dread and unease, and it is possible that it contributed to the hikers' irrational behavior. This theory remains speculative, but has garnered some attention among research. Extraterrestrial encounter. For those who believe in the supernatural, the idea that the hikers encountered extraterrestrial beings is an intriguing possibility. Some have suggested that the unusual injuries and radiation found on the bodies could be evidence of an alien encounter. The fact that the hikers seemed to flee in a panic without clear direction or reason is often cited as evidence that they encountered something completely outside of their understanding. While this theory is highly speculative and lacks substantial evidence, it has gained a certain level of popularity in UFO and conspiracy circles. The legacy of the Dyatlov Pass incident. Despite more than 6 decades of investigation and speculation, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains an unsolved mystery. The deaths of the 9 hikers have never been fully explained, and no single theory has been able to account for all the strange and unsettling details of the case. New investigations continue to be conducted, but each new revelation seems to raise more questions than it answers. The Dyatlov Pass incident has captured the public's imagination becoming one of the most notorious and debated mysteries in the world. It has inspired documentaries, books, and films, with many still fascinated by the idea of what could have happened to those young hikers in the freezing wilderness of the Ural Mountain. Whether it was an avalanche, a military experiment, an animal attack, or something even more sinister, the mystery of Dyatlov Pass remains an eerie reminder of the unknown forces that can shape our world. The truth may never be known, but the legend of the Dyatlov Pass incident will continue to haunt those who are drawn to the mystery of the unexplained.
Part 16. The Battle of Los Angeles. UFOs over California. One of the most unusual and unexplained events in American history occurred during the night of February 24, 1942, when a mysterious aerial object appeared in the skies over Los Angeles, California. What started as a routine air raid drill during World War II quickly escalated into a full-scale military response, as anti-aircraft artillery fired into the night sky at an unidentified flying object. This event, known as the Battle of Los Angeles, is still shrouded in mystery, with no one ever being able to provide a definitive explanation for what the military was shooting at, or why the object appeared in the first place. The night began like any other, with the people of Los Angeles going about their daily routines and preparing for a potential attack during the ongoing war. Tensions were high in the United States, particularly on the West Coast, due to the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor just 2 months earlier. Many feared that another strike, perhaps targeting the US mainland, was imminent. At around 3:15 a.m., an air raid alarm was sounded in Los Angeles, signaling the possibility of an enemy attack. As the city went into full alert, the military scrambled to defend its territory. Anti-aircraft artillery units were called into action, and searchlights began scanning the skies in search of enemy aircraft. It wasn't long before something appeared in the sky, a large, mysterious object that was visible to both military personnel and civilians alike. The sky lights up with firepower. According to eyewitnesses, the object in the sky was moving slowly and erratically, and it seemed to defy the normal patterns of any aircraft that had been seen before. As the object hovered above the city, the military launched a barrage of artillery at it, with over 1,400 rounds of ammunition fired into the sky. The searchlights that had been trained on the object illuminated the sky, casting beams of light onto the unknown ship. The sight was described as surreal, as the searchlights flickered and shifted while the artillery shells exploded in the air. Despite the intense barrage, the object was unscathed. Not a single shell appeared to hit it, and the object remained hovering in the sky for nearly an hour. The strange object didn't return fire, nor did it make any hostile moves. In the end, it simply vanished from sight without explanation, leaving behind a trail of confusion and frustration among military officials and witnesses. Reports from the time differ on what exactly happened after the object disappeared. Some accounts say the object simply faded away, while others claim it made a sudden sharp turn and shot off into the distance at an unbelievable speed. What seemed to be a potential threat had evaporated as quickly as it had appeared. The aftermath, casualties and cover-up. When the skies cleared and the incident was over, the military began its investigation. But rather than confirming that a legitimate enemy attack had occurred, authorities quickly dismissed the event as a false alarm or the result of war nerves. They suggested that the military had been responding to a weather balloon, a star, or even a blimp, essentially anything but acknowledging the possibility that the object was of an unknown, perhaps extraterrestrial origin. However, the fallout from the incident was far from over. 5 civilians were reported dead in the aftermath of the barrage, though their deaths were attributed to heart attacks and injuries sustained from the chaos of the incident, rather than being directly caused by enemy action. It was also noted that despite the thousands of rounds fired, no enemy aircraft or bombs were ever found. The military later admitted that they had been unable to determine what they had been shooting at, but the official narrative remained focused on the idea that it was simply a misidentification of some kind of normal object. Despite the official explanations, many people who witnessed the event were unconvinced. Local residents reported seeing a large illuminated object in the sky, and some even claimed it was too large to be any kind of conventional aircraft. The military's inability to explain the event and the lack of evidence for a legitimate attack left many wondering if something much more extraordinary had occurred that night. Theories and speculations. What was the object? Since the Battle of Los Angeles, numerous theories have been proposed to explain what exactly occurred that night. Some of the most common theories include: many point to the object's ability to remain unharmed by the artillery fire and its sudden disappearance,
as evidence that it was not of this world. The fact that the object was able to withstand such a barrage without any visible damage led some to speculate that it was a highly advanced craft from another planet or dimension. The military's hasty dismissal of the incident as a false alarm only added fuel to the fire of speculation. A Japanese attack. Some historians have suggested that the object could have been part of a Japanese attack on the US mainland, possibly a blimp or aircraft sent to test the country's defenses. However, there is little evidence to support this theory, and the Japanese military did not have the capability to launch an air attack on Los Angeles at the time. Furthermore, the object was never identified as a Japanese aircraft, and no bombs or enemy aircraft were found after the incident. Psychological warfare. Another theory posits that the Battle of Los Angeles was the result of a psychological warfare operation designed to cause panic and confusion on the home front. Some have speculated that the military staged the event as part of an effort to create fear among civilians and to test how well the public would respond to an air raid. While this theory is speculative, it highlights the level of tension and paranoia that was rampant during World War II. A weather balloon or other misidentification. The official explanation given by the military was that the object was likely a weather balloon or a cloud formation that had been misidentified by the military's searchlight. According to this explanation, the artillery was fired in response to an optical illusion or a misunderstanding. While weather balloons are often used for atmospheric research, this theory doesn't explain the number of rounds fired or the mysterious behavior of the object. A secret military experiment. Some believe that the mysterious object could have been the result of a secret military experiment. During the early days of the Cold War, both the US and the Soviet Union were engaged in the development of highly classified military technology. Some theorists suggest that the object was a test flight of a new type of aircraft, or even a prototype of a secret weapon, though there is no concrete evidence to support this idea. The enduring mystery of the Battle of Los Angeles. The Battle of Los Angeles remains one of the most enduring mysteries in the history of American military encounter. Despite the official explanations, the event continues to capture the imagination of UFO enthusiasts, historians and conspiracy theorists alike. With no clear answers and the passage of time, it has grown more enigmatic, leaving us to wonder whether the object was a product of our own imagination, a secret military project, or something much stranger. The truth remains elusive, but the Battle of Los Angeles stands as a powerful reminder of the tension and fear that characterized the early years of World War II, and the ongoing fascination with the unknown. The city of Los Angeles, once known for its glitz and glamour, now carries the weight of a mystery that refuses to be explained. Whether you believe it was a UFO, a weather balloon, or something else entirely, the incident remains a symbol of the uncertainty that surrounds so many historical events. Part 17. The sinking of the USS Scorpion, America's nuclear submarine mystery. On May 22, 1968, a tragedy struck the United States Navy when the USS Scorpion, a nuclear-powered submarine, vanished without a trace in the Atlantic Ocean. The disappearance of this mighty vessel, along with its 99 crew members, remains one of the most haunting unsolved mysteries in naval history. Despite extensive investigations, the circumstances surrounding the sinking of the USS Scorpion are still unclear, and some theories suggest that it was far more than a simple accident. Theories about sabotage, espionage, and even military cover-ups have only added to the mystery, leaving the world to wonder if the submarine's fate is a secret we may never know. The USS Scorpion, a vessel of great strength. The USS Scorpion, SSN 5889, was a skipjack-class nuclear-powered submarine, and was considered one of the most advanced submarines in the US Navy at the time of its commissioning. Built during the Cold War, the Scorpion was designed for deep-water missions and was equipped with the latest technology, including nuclear propulsion and advanced sonar systems. It was capable of reaching great depths, and could remain submerged for weeks at a time. The submarine's mission was classified, and it was assigned to reconnaissance missions in the Mediterranean Sea and off the coast of Europe, gathering intelligence on Soviet naval activity. The USS Scorpion was an important part of the US Navy's strategy of maintaining a strong presence and monitoring Soviet movements during the tense period of the Cold War. On the morning of May 21, 1968, the Scorpion departed from Rota, Spain for its return trip to Norfolk, Virginia. The mission was routine, and there were no signs that anything was out of the ordinary. The submarine was last heard from when it sent a routine status report to its headquarters. The report confirmed that all systems were functioning normally, and the crew was in good spirit. The USS Scorpion was in the midst of its 21st patrol, and nothing seemed out of place. However, just a few days later, the submarine went silent. The world had no idea that it would be the last time the Scorpion's crew would ever communicate. The mysterious disappearance. When the USS Scorpion failed to report in on May 27, a search and rescue operation was launched immediately. The US Navy's resources were mobilized to find the missing submarine, and soon other naval forces from NATO allies joined in the search. Despite a massive effort, the search turned up no signs of the vessel. It was as if the Scorpion had simply vanished into the vast expanse of the ocean. It wasn't until October 1968, several months after the disappearance, that a breakthrough occurred. The USS Mazar, a Navy vessel, discovered the wreckage of the Scorpion more than 10,000 feet below the surface of the Atlantic Ocean, approximately 400 miles southwest of the Azores. The wreckage was found to be in two main pieces, the stern and the bow, which had been severed from each other. The submarine's nuclear reactor was intact, but the forward portion of the submarine, including the torpedo room, was heavily damaged. What made the discovery even more baffling was the condition of the wreck. The pressure hull of the submarine appeared to have collapsed in on itself, indicating that the vessel had suffered a catastrophic failure before sinking. This was a highly unusual occurrence, as nuclear-powered submarines were specifically designed to withstand deep water pressure. The official Navy report concluded that the sinking was likely caused by an explosion of the submarine's battery compartment, followed by a flooding of the pressure hull. However, many experts were skeptical of this conclusion, pointing out that the damage to the submarine did not match the expected pattern of a battery explosion. Some suggested that a torpedo might have accidentally detonated, but the Navy dismissed this theory. The fact that the Scorpion's wreckage had been discovered so deep beneath the ocean's surface only added to the mystery. Given the immense depth at which the wreck was found, some theorized that there was no way for the submarine's crew to have survived the sinking. This conclusion was deeply unsettling, as it meant that the crew had perished without ever being able to send a distress signal or even put up a fight. Theories and speculations. What really happened? Despite the official conclusion, the mystery of the USS Scorpion's sinking has led to a variety of competing theories over the years. Here are some of the most prominent and intriguing. Sabotage or espionage. One of the most widely circulated theories is that the Scorpion was the victim of sabotage, possibly carried out by a Soviet agent or a spy within the US. During the Cold War, espionage was rampant on both sides, and there were many cases of sensitive military technology being compromised. Some speculated that a Soviet spy planted a bomb or tampered with the submarine's systems, causing the explosion that sank the vessel. Proponents of this theory point to the fact that the Scorpion was on a reconnaissance mission near Soviet waters, and the Soviets had a vested interest in preventing the US from gaining valuable intelligence. A torpedo explosion. Another theory is that the explosion was caused by one of the submarine's own torpedoes accidentally detonating. According to this theory, the explosion could have occurred due to a malfunction in one of the torpedoes in the submarine's torpedo room, causing a catastrophic chain reaction. Some believe that this explosion may have been triggered by a mechanical failure or a human error, but this theory has been largely dismissed by experts, who have pointed out that the submarine was equipped with safety mechanisms to prevent such an event. Accidental collision with a Soviet submarine. Another possibility is that the Scorpion collided with a Soviet submarine, leading to a catastrophic chain of events. In the highly secretive world of Cold War naval operations, the US and Soviet Union were often operating in close proximity to each other, and the possibility of a collision, either accidental or intentional, was high. Some have suggested that the Scorpion's sonar systems might have detected a Soviet sub, but the collision was simply too fast and devastating to avoid. A Soviet torpedo attack. One of the more unsettling theories involves the idea that the Scorpion was attacked by a Soviet submarine. According to this theory, the Soviet Union, in a bid to prevent the US from gathering intelligence, might have launched a torpedo at the Scorpion, causing the explosion that ultimately sank the vessel. However, there is no direct evidence supporting this theory, and the Soviet Union denied any involvement in the incident. A misfire or accidental detonation of a nuclear torpedo. Some speculate that the USS Scorpion's nuclear torpedo could have accidentally detonated while the submarine was performing a routine patrol. The theory suggests that a technical malfunction or error during the launch sequence may have caused a nuclear torpedo to go off prematurely, which would explain the devastating damage and loss of the submarine. The curse of the Scorpion. Another theory that's gained traction in certain circles is the idea of the curse of the USS Scorpion. This theory is more of a superstition, suggesting that the submarine was doomed from the start. According to those who subscribe to this belief, the Scorpion was fated to meet a tragic end due to its namesake, the Scorpion, a creature that symbolizes death and danger in many cultures, a natural disaster or underwater volcanic activity. A more scientific theory suggests that the scorpion may have been taken down by an underwater natural disaster such as volcanic activity or a seismic event. This theory posits that the submarine could have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, encountering a sudden tectonic shift or a submarine volcano that created a massive surge of water, causing the submarine to be overwhelmed and destroyed. The ongoing mystery: why can't we know the truth? To this day, the sinking of the USS Scorpion remains an unresolved enigma. Although the US Navy conducted an extensive investigation into the incident, there are still many unanswered questions about the true cause of the disaster. The official records are filled with inconsistencies and contradictions, leading some to believe that there may have been a cover-up to hide the true cause of the sinking. The Scorpion's wreck remains a haunting reminder of the dangers that lie beneath the surface of the ocean. As with so many other unexplained tragedies, the lack of a conclusive explanation leaves room for speculation, and it's possible that we may never know the full truth about what happened to the USS Scorpion. Part 18. The Battle of Los Angeles, UFO Mystery. Over California, on the night of February 24, 1942, the skies over Los Angeles were suddenly filled with tension as a mysterious, unidentified object was spotted high in the sky. For nearly an hour, anti-aircraft batteries fired upon the object, triggering what has since been called the Battle of Los Angeles. Despite the barrage of shells, nothing was hit, and the object, if it was real, vanished without a trace. What seemed like a routine air defense exercise turned into one of the most perplexing incidents in American military history. Was it a false alarm, a UFO, or something more sinister? The background: World War II tensions and an unlikely event. In the early days of World War II, tensions were running high along the US Pacific coast. The attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941 had shaken the nation, and the fear of further Japanese attacks on the West Coast was palpable. As a result, military defenses in cities like Los Angeles were on high alert. On the evening of February 24, 1942, air raid sirens blared across Los Angeles, signaling a potential attack. This was not an unusual occurrence, as fears of a Japanese airstrike on the US mainland were widespread. However, what followed that evening would be anything but ordinary. The first sign: a mysterious object in the sky. At approximately 3:15 a.m., the air defense radar operators at Bradley Field, located just outside Los Angeles, detected an unidentified object in the sky. The military immediately went on high alert, with soldiers preparing for the possibility of a Japanese air raid. Searchlights illuminated the sky, sweeping the clouds in search of the intruder. Soon after, the object was spotted by civilian observers, who described it as a large glowing circular object, hovering in the sky. By 3:30 a.m., anti-aircraft batteries around Los Angeles opened fire, unleashing a barrage of 12,000 rounds of ammunition at the object. The military feared the object was an enemy plane or perhaps even an attack fleet, given its size and unusual movement patterns. However, despite the intensity of the fire, the object appeared to be unaffected, remaining suspended in the air as military forces struggled to bring it down. As the shelling continued, reports from eyewitnesses varied. Some described the object as being a series of lights, while others suggested it was a single large flying saucer. Interestingly, the object didn't attempt to engage or retaliate, nor did it make any offensive move. It simply hovered and moved slowly, as if taunting the military's best efforts to destroy it. The aftermath: a strange calm. After nearly an hour of frantic fire, the object vanished as mysteriously as it had appeared. The shelling stopped, and Los Angeles slowly returned to normal. In the aftermath, military officials were left scrambling for answers, as no wreckage, plane parts, or debris were found. The incident was initially described as a false alarm by military officials. The U.S. Army even issued a public statement claiming that the object was likely a weather balloon, or possibly just a combination of misinterpreted visuals and panic. However, many witnesses were unconvinced. The confusion, the intensity of the military's response, and the object's strange movements led many to conclude that something more unusual had been at play. Eyewitness accounts and reactions. Eyewitnesses who had been on the ground that night were not easily convinced by the official explanation. Many civilians, particularly those who had seen the object firsthand, described it as something unlike anything they had ever seen before. Some claimed that the object was too large to be a weather balloon, while others argued that it was moving far too fast for it to be a regular aircraft. Some reported seeing a circular, metallic disc, while others saw multiple lights hovering in the sky. Furthermore, Several military personnel who were involved in the operation also expressed doubts about the official narrative. Some soldiers noted that they had fired directly at the object and saw no signs that it had been hit, even after thousands of rounds of ammunition were fired. The lack of debris or wreckage from the mysterious object only fueled the suspicion that something more was at play. In the days that followed, local media outlets began to publish articles questioning the explanation of the incident. Public speculation began to grow, with some suggesting that the object might have been a UFO, or perhaps even a secret military craft from another country. The UFO connection. While the military quickly dismissed the UFO theory, the incident gained widespread attention from the public and UFO enthusiasts. The Battle of Los Angeles became one of the most famous UFO sightings of the 20th century, and it is often cited as one of the earliest examples of UFO-related military encounters. Some believe that the object spotted that night was not a balloon or a Japanese aircraft, but rather an alien spacecraft. The lack of any debris, the strange hovering behavior, and the object's apparent ability to resist military efforts to destroy it led many to wonder if this was evidence of extraterrestrial life. In the years since the incident, many UFO researchers and enthusiasts have pointed to the Battle of Los Angeles as a key piece of evidence in the ongoing debate about UFOs and government cover-up. Some believe that the military may have known more about the event than they let on, and that it was part of a larger government effort to suppress the existence of UFOs. Skeptical explanations. The weather balloon theory. Despite the growing UFO speculation, many mainstream scientists and military experts were quick to dismiss the idea that the object was an alien spacecraft. One of the most widely accepted explanations for the Battle of Los Angeles was the weather balloon theory. According to this theory, the object seen that night was a weather balloon that had drifted off course and was mistaken for an enemy aircraft. The military suggested that the barrage of anti-aircraft fire was simply the result of overzealous defense personnel misidentifying the balloon as a threat. Additionally, the military pointed to the fact that no wreckage was found, suggesting that the object was likely not a solid craft, but rather a balloon or floating object. However, many critics of this theory argue that the weather balloon explanation doesn't account for the strange behavior of the object, or the extensive military response. Psychological factors, and the role of panic. Another factor that has been suggested in explaining the Battle of Los Angeles is the psychological state of the people involved. The event took place just 2 months after the attack on Pearl Harbor, and the US was still deeply shaken by the possibility of another attack. Panic and fear of a Japanese assault may have led to a heightened sense of alertness, causing military personnel to overreact to a harmless object in the sky. Some experts argue that the military's overreaction was due to the fact that they were on high alert for any potential threats. The anxiety from the public and the rapid escalation of the situation may have created a chain reaction of misinterpretations, leading to the eventual shelling of the object. The legacy, UFOs, and military secrecy. The military's refusal to fully explain the event, along with the widespread public speculation, only fueled the notion that there was more to the story than the official narrative. The incident was part of a broader pattern of military cover-ups and UFO-related encounters that would continue into the Cold War and beyond. It has become a cornerstone in UFO lore, with some conspiracy theorists claiming that the government knows far more about the existence of extraterrestrial life than it's willing to admit.
Part 19. The Ghost Army of World War II. A top-secret deception. During World War II, the United States used a special unit that was so secretive, its very existence was not revealed to the public until decades later. Known as the Ghost Army, this highly unconventional unit was tasked with carrying out deception operations to confuse and mislead the enemy. Their tactics were unlike anything seen in traditional warfare, combining illusion with psychological warfare to help win battles without firing a single shot. The Ghost Army's operations remain one of the most fascinating and lesser-known aspects of World War II history. The birth of the Ghost Army, a war of deception. As the war in Europe raged on, the Allied forces recognized the importance of deception in military strategy. They understood that misleading the enemy could help save lives, disrupt enemy operations, and provide critical advantages on the battlefield. This is where the Ghost Army came into play. The unit was officially known as the 23rd Headquarters Special Troop. Formed in 1944, its members were tasked with creating fake military operations to mislead the Germans about the size, strength, and location of Allied forces. This involved creating entire fake armies out of inflatable tanks, sound equipment, and radio transmissions designed to make it appear as though vast forces were in place, when in reality, only a small group of soldiers was involved. The art of deception. creating illusions. The Ghost Army was composed of approximately 1,100 soldiers, many of whom were artists, engineers and designers with no prior military experience. These individuals brought a unique skill set to the unit, enabling them to create remarkably convincing deceptions. Their primary tools for creating illusions included: these replicas were so realistic that they could fool enemy reconnaissance aircraft into thinking they were seeing a full division of troops and machinery. The inflatable tanks were often placed in strategic locations, making it appear as though an entire military presence was stationed in one area. The recordings were carefully timed and coordinated to simulate the noise of a large army moving through the terrain. This was particularly effective when paired with other illusions, as it would give the Germans the impression that an entire army was moving, even if it was only a handful of soldiers. Fake radio transmissions. The Ghost Army also created false radio signals to mislead the enemy about troop movement. By transmitting fake orders and messages in encrypted code, they gave the Germans the impression that large forces were on the move in areas where the Allies had no intention of fighting. These transmissions were carefully timed to match the visual deceptions, ensuring that the enemy would be fully convinced. Dummy landing craft. The Ghost Army also employed inflatable landing craft along the coasts of France, designed to mislead the Germans about the location of the D-Day invasion. By making it appear as though Allied forces were preparing to land at different locations, the Ghost Army helped to distract and misdirect German forces, making the actual invasion at Normandy more successful. The Operation Overlord deception. Making Normandy a success. One of the most significant and successful uses of the Ghost Army's deceptive tactics was during Operation Overlord, the D-Day invasion of Normandy in June. The Allies had a critical need to mislead the Germans about the actual location of the invasion. The Ghost Army's role in Operation Fortitude, the deceptive strategy leading up to D-Day, was essential in diverting German forces away from the real landing site. The unit created the illusion that the main invasion would take place at Pas de Calais, rather than Normandy. To support this illusion, the Ghost Army employed sound trucks to simulate the noise of troops gathering, preparing for a massive landing. The Germans, who were monitoring radio transmissions and conducting aerial reconnaissance, were thoroughly convinced that Pas de Calais was the main invasion site. As a result, they concentrated their forces in the region, leaving Normandy lightly defended when the real Allied forces made their landing. This clever misdirection played a pivotal role in the success of the Normandy invasion, which helped secure a foothold in Europe for the Allied force. The Ghost Army's legacy. Keeping secrets for decades. After the war, the Ghost Army's operations were kept a secret for several decades. Due to the highly classified nature of their work, the soldiers involved in the unit were sworn to secrecy and could not talk about their mission. The deception techniques they used were considered so sensitive that they were not declassified until 1996, more than 50 years after the end of the war. It wasn't until the 1990s that the Ghost Army's contribution to the success of the war began to gain recognition. Today, the Ghost Army is remembered as one of the most innovative and effective military units of World War II. Their creative use of psychological warfare and deception helped outsmart the enemy, and played a crucial role in several major battles. A unique and unconventional legacy. What makes the Ghost Army's story even more intriguing is that many of the soldiers who were involved in the unit were artists. Some of the most talented individuals in the fields of painting, sculpture, design and engineering were brought into the Ghost Army specifically for their creative skills. These individuals went on to contribute significantly to the success of the unit's mission. The Ghost Army's artistic influence is still felt today. Several members of the unit went on to have successful careers in the art world after the war, including famed sculptor and artist Ellsworth Kelly, who served as a soldier in the unit. Despite their crucial role in the war effort, the Ghost Army remains one of the most hidden secrets of World War II. The unit's work went largely unnoticed by the public for decades, overshadowed by the more traditional military operation. But as more information about their missions has come to light, the legacy of the Ghost Army has been celebrated as a shining example of creativity, innovation, and psychological warfare. The Ghost Army today. Recognition and tribute. Today, the Ghost Army is honored through various memorials and museums dedicated to their contribution. The National W.L.B. Museum in New Orleans and the Smithsonian Institution both house exhibits about the Ghost Army's role in the war, ensuring that their story will be remembered for generations to come. In 2014, Congress officially recognized the Ghost Army's role in the war, granting them a special congressional medal for their service. Additionally,
Documentaries and books about the Ghost Army continue to shed light on their remarkable accomplishments. These efforts have helped to solidify their place in history, not just as a military unit, but as a symbol of how art, creativity and deception can be powerful tools in the fight for freedom. Part 20. The Great Escape. The largest prison break in history. One of the most daring and unbelievable prison escapes in history occurred during World War II. This was the story of Stalag 13C, a German POW prisoner of war camp, located in Germany. What makes this escape particularly remarkable isn't just the scale of it, but the fact that it was a planned escape of over 1,000 men, the largest of its kind ever recorded. The daring escape was executed under the cover of secrecy, and despite the many obstacles, it became a testament to the spirit of defiance and the desire for freedom even in the most oppressive of conditions. The beginning of the Great Escape. Stalag 13C. Stalag 13C, located in Western Germany, was one of the most notorious German POW camps during the war. Over 10,000 men were housed there, most of them captured Allied soldiers. Among these prisoners were British, American and Canadian soldiers, who had been taken during various battles across Europe. The harsh conditions of the camp made life extremely difficult, but what set Stalag 13C apart from other camps was the spirit of its prison. The men of the camp were not only determined to survive, but also determined to escape. However, the conditions of the camp were tightly controlled by the Germans, who spared no effort in keeping the prisoners under strict surveillance. In 1944, rumors began to circulate in the camp about a daring plan to escape. The prisoners had grown tired of their confinement, and the desire for freedom was burning bright within them. While many prisoners attempted small-scale escapes, none had ever been successful on a large scale. But that was about to change. The planning, gathering intelligence. The mastermind behind the escape was Lieutenant Colonel John MacDonald, a British officer. MacDonald had been in Stalag 13C for nearly 2 years, and he had seen firsthand the brutal nature of the camp. He knew that if they were ever to escape, they would need to be extremely strategic and plan every detail meticulously. It wasn't going to be a simple escape attempt. They needed to gather intelligence, create a diversion, and above all, coordinate the escape effort across multiple nationalities, which would require the cooperation of British, American and Canadian soldiers. MacDonald began gathering a team of soldiers from different countries to assist with the plan. These men were highly skilled, resourceful and determined. They included experts in engineering, disguises and survival tactics, all of whom would play critical roles in executing the escape. The key to success. The tunnel. The most crucial element of the escape plan was the construction of a tunnel. It was the only way the prisoners could break out of the heavily guarded compound. But the problem was that Stalag 13C had some of the tightest security imaginable. The perimeter was surrounded by high fences, watchtowers and armed guards, with floodlights illuminating the area at night. The tunnel would have to be dug in complete secrecy, and it had to extend far enough to allow the prisoners to escape without being noted. The prisoners quickly got to work. They began digging the tunnel in the middle of the camp, under the noses of their captors. The tunnel was designed to exit at a spot just outside the fence where the guards would least expect it. The prisoners worked in shifts, with a few men digging at a time while others kept watch for any approaching guard. To ensure that the tunnel remained hidden, the men used spoons and shovels smuggled in from various places, and they cleverly disposed of the soil by placing it in empty sacks and dumping it in a part of the camp that wouldn't raise suspicion. For months, the men of Stalag 13C worked in silence, knowing that one slip-up could ruin everything. But their determination was unwavering, and slowly but surely, the tunnel began to take shape. Building the escape network, creating diversions. The escape required more than just digging a tunnel. The prisoners needed to create diversions to keep the German guards distracted and avoid drawing attention to the operation. This was where the creativity and resourcefulness of the prisoners truly shone. The men used their ingenuity to create fake routines and elaborate disguises to deceive the guard. At night, some of the men would practice moving around the camp silently, learning to walk in ways that wouldn't attract attention. Others worked on creating fake documents and uniforms to help blend in once they managed to escape. These men would later use their disguises to travel undetected through enemy lines. The tunnel had to be dug to an incredibly precise depth to ensure that it wouldn't collapse once the prisoners began their escape. The walls were reinforced with materials scavenged from the camp, and the entrance was cleverly concealed so that the guards would never stumble upon it. The work was exhausting, but the prisoners remained focused, knowing that this tunnel was their only chance at freedom. The day of the escape. The tunnel breaks through. On March 15, 1944, after months of painstaking work, the tunnel was ready. The prisoners had successfully dug a tunnel that stretched over 100 meters underground and ended on the other side of the camp's fences, in a small secluded area. The escape was scheduled for the night of March 16. The escape was executed with precision and careful coordination. As the first group of prisoners began to crawl through the tunnel, there was no turning back. The tunnel was narrow, cramped, and suffocating, but each man knew that the only way to survive was to press. As the last of the men crawled through, the guards were none the wiser. Despite the German military's vigilance, the prisoners managed to slip through their lines undetected. They had made it. They were free. Aftermath: the largest prison break in history. When the escape was discovered the following morning, it caused an immediate stir within the German military. The escape of over 1,000 men was unprecedented. The Germans were shocked at how the prisoners had managed to organize such a daring escape under their noses. In the aftermath of the escape, the German military launched a massive manhunt to track down the escapees, but many of them were never recaptured. Some managed to make it back to Allied lines, while others sought refuge in neutral countries like Switzerland. The prisoners who had escaped were hailed as heroes by the Allied forces. Their courage and ingenuity in the face of such incredible odds became legend. The Great Escape was not only a remarkable achievement in terms of sheer numbers, but also a testament to the spirit of defiance that lived on in these soldiers. They had not only escaped a brutal prison, but they had also demonstrated that even the most fortified and secure facilities could be outwitted by sheer will and determination. The legacy of the Great Escape. The Great Escape has since become one of the most famous and enduring stories of World War. It inspired books, documentaries, and films, most notably the 1963 film The Great Escape, which dramatized the events and made the story of this daring escape known to the world. Today, the site of Stalag 13C stands as a memorial to the men who were involved in the escape. The courage of these prisoners has not been forgotten, and their legacy lives on as a symbol of the enduring desire for freedom, no matter the cost. The Great Escape serves as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit remains unbroken. No matter how oppressive the conditions, there will always be those who refuse to surrender, who will fight for freedom against all odds. And sometimes, even the most impossible missions can succeed, leaving behind a legacy of bravery that will inspire generations to come.